I don't like a lot of the tight ends, but at the same time, I think there are a lot of serviceable tight ends in this draft.
Yeah, I ended up putting 25 in my rankings, which is way more than I normally put in the rankings. But there's just that many that I like this year that I think they can develop into NFL starters. But a lot of the guys that don't have Pro Bowl upside this year are probably going to start out as number 10s and have to work their way up.
I would cut that back because the last couple of years have been so...
I think the problem with this group is, and it mainly the route. The last few years, the tight ends have been able to run all 30 routes in the route tree. This draft does not have a tight end of that caliber, but the tight ends in this draft are better blockers, better in pass blocking, better in run blocking, I think.
And then last year you had guys like Harold Fannin who can't run all 30 routes, but reminds me of...
I had him running all 30 routes. When I watched his Bowling Green tape, I saw him run all 30 routes effectively.
He reminds me more of Gronk or Coke, where, there's an open spot, I'm there, and then I'm going to drag 6 people along with me or run through them. Kind of like those guys early in their careers before they got old. Weren't as great at running through people. That's kind of what Fannin reminded me of, and he's kind of doing that with the Browns. But he was kind of, like you said, it was more of a route-running athletic thing last year, and then you had Fannin was kind of, I felt, was the outlier where he was just the Kels type where, there's an open spot. Hit me, and I'm going to run through somebody. Which is good, too. I mean, Kels made a hell of a living doing that, so... I don't see anybody like that. I don't see that game breaker that just goes against the norm, you know? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I'm going to pull up the tight ends.
There were rumors at the combine last year that Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski were cheering when Fannin ran a 4.7, when everybody else was sitting there looking at him like, why the hell are you cheering? You only ran a 4.7. Because I don't know about Stefanski, but from what I heard, Berry wanted to draft Fannin in the second round, but when he ran a 4.7, Berry was ecstatic because he's like, I'm going to give him in the third. And it was like, this is it. And everybody was looking at him weird because it's like, who cheers for somebody to run a slower time?
Yeah, the ceilings of the top 3 tight ends last year, I think I had a 93 on Fannin, and I had a 94. I think I had a 93 on Fannin, a 94 on Loveland, and I think I had an 87 on Tyler Warren, but I had Warren as the guy with the highest floor in last year's draft.
Yeah, and I think we were both higher on Fannin than he got drafted. I think we both had
I had him in the second round. I had him clearly in the second round of the draft, so...
I think that was both of us. We were like, why the hell is this guy in the third? It's like, but... It turned out it was the 40 time being 4.7.
Well, the 40 time was one of the reasons he fell to the third. The other was a lot of people did not think he was a good blocker. A lot of people did not think Harold Fannin was a good blocker coming out of Bowling Green. I don't know what tape those guys were watching, but that's what a lot of people told me. He gets in perfect place, but he doesn't follow through. Yeah, the only tight end that matched Harold Fannin in terms of potential for this draft was Eli Stowers out of Vanderbilt. And Eli Stowers, he's a better pass blocker and run blocker than a lot of the tight ends in the recent drafts. The problem is he only ran 10 out of 30 routes in the route tree, which isn't bad, but it's not spectacular either. It's a letdown from what we've seen in the last few drafts, Joey, and that's pretty much what you were bringing up before we started this.
Yeah, I'm like, I thought he was like a third-round prospect. I mean, he's not bad, but he's not terrible. I mean, I think, like you said, the first 3 picks, the first 2 that we had within the first two rounds. You know, this just seems like a third-round pick. I'm not too sure about that. Led me to think that, yeah, what I said was correct. Like,
well, Rand Carthen basically came out and said he wouldn't have drafted Eli Stowers before the 5th round had he declared last year. That's basically what Rand Carthen said on a podcast.
That says a lot right there. That says a lot. If he's your number 1 tight end in that class, that's a hell of a lot.
And Vanderbilt does play LSU at noon today. And Stowers, in the first game, I only saw him run 5 routes. And then I watched his tape against Alabama in 2024, and I got up to 10 routes. I really want to see him utilize the route tree more against LSU today, because LSU's favored. That game is on Vanderbilt's favored, but I think LSU's going to win. But that game, Vanderbilt in Nashville, is on at noon. And then Vanderbilt plays Missouri next week. And if Vanderbilt wins against LSU, there's a good chance College Game Day goes to Vanderbilt for Missouri-Vanderbilt next week. But Stowers is the headline guy, I think, in this class. And the next guy after Eli Stowers is my number 2 tight end. I've got a 92 potential on him, and that is Tanner Kozoil, the Houston Cougars tight end. This is the other tight end that cracked my first round of my mock draft. I had the Eagles taking Eli Stowers, and I had the Commanders taking Kozoil. So Kozoil out of Houston. And to Kozoil's defense, he killed it at Ball State last year. He transferred to Houston, and his quarterback is Connor Weigman. And his production isn't as good as Houston versus at Ball State, but, you know, he does have...
That also comes with the offense. Houston's offense spreads it around the whole lot from Ball State.
Yeah, that's true.
But at the same time, I'm looking at it saying, you do not start at Houston unless you are a damn good receiver who can catch the ball. So that does say something about his skill set.
Yeah. I agree. And those are the 2 guys that stood out for me. And then after that, you've got the next tight end on this list, and that is Mac. That is the Ohio State tight end, Max Clare. He's my tight end 3. I do have a 2nd-round grade on Max Clare. And Max Clare is my only 2nd-round tight end. But when William was going through the tight end rankings, he had Kozoil, Clare, and Stowers as the headliners. He was a little bit lower on Stowers than I was, but Max Clare is tight end 3. And he's the only tight end.
I'm not a fan of Clare. I am more of a fan of Ohio State's 2 offensive tackles, who I love completely. And their tight end this year, this may be the first year. I just don't see as much in the tight end position with Ohio State. I mean, he's not bad, but I see a 3rd-round pick in him. I think he's good to develop, and he could develop into a starter. But I just don't see the upside of a Harold Fannin or a Ward.
Well, that's the thing.
I don't see those. I don't see that upside in.
I didn't really view Tyler Warren as a guy with Pro Bowl upside. I viewed Loveland as that, and I viewed Fannin as that. And I think Stowers is the only tight end that's comparable to Fannin from a ceiling perspective. From a route tree perspective, he still has a long way to go. And then after Stowers, you have Kozoil and Claire, who I have a second round grade on. I've got a 91 for potential on Claire. And he's made a lot of progress. Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Day have praised the progress he's made this year. But I need more of it moving forward for me to be completely sold on him as a prospect. And we've got 4 third-round tight ends, Joey. After Max Clare, we've got 4 third-round tight ends. I'm curious if any of these guys are on the list are ranked above Stowers, Kozoil, and Clare. Number 4 is Texas tight Jack Endries. Jack Endries is a tight end for Texas. He took over for Gunnar Helm this year. And we've got a 90 for potential on him, but he doesn't seem to be as involved in the passing game as Gunnar Helm was a year ago. And it's interesting because
he's an intriguing prospect. I think he's a better blocker than Helm, but at the same time, I think he does have some receiving skills that need refined, but I think he's a much better blocker at the same time. So I would see him. I'm not sure I see him in the third. That is little 4th round tight end. That
Gunnar Helm went 120th overall last year, and many had a second or third on him, but he fell to the 4th for a reason. So,
yeah, it's like I think this is the 4th round pick, but I also think that he has more upside than Helm. So I look at that as something.
I agree with that because I had a high end grade on Helm. I didn't have like a 90, which is the minimum for a guy with potential to develop into a Pro Bowler. I'm not saying he'll become that, but there's more of a ceiling with Endries, I think, than there is with Helm. But we got to see more from him in terms of the production. Otherwise, the floor is going to be really low, and that's going to affect how long he takes to develop. And then the next tight end on this list is North Carolina State's Justin Jolly. Justin Jolly, the North Carolina State tight end, made this list. So far this year, Justin Jolly has 30 receptions, 264 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He previously played for Connecticut before transferring to North Carolina State. And
because he is basically a pure evil. And, as a coach, I want my tight ends to be able to block at least a little bit. And he just catches me as a receiver. A damn good one. But, he may have to transition to a slot role in the pros or an H-back slot type deal where he's moving around a little bit, because I don't think he'll be able to play on the line.
6'3", 251. So you're basically saying he's a wide receiver in a tight end's body. Basically, that's basically what I'm hearing.
Yeah, that's basically it. I mean, he does not strike me as a guy who's going to get on the line and be able to block. He doesn't strike me as a blocker.
Yep. And then Miles Kitzelman, Tennessee tight end, he made this list as well. 6'5". Kitzelman is interesting because he was a former Alabama tight end that transferred to Tennessee. So yeah, he was the third string tight end on Alabama in 2022. He wanted more playing time, so he transferred to Tennessee, and he started in 2024.
I mean, it's like he transferred to a worse situation that's not going to prepare coach as well. So it's like, you want more playing time, great, but how prepared are you actually going to be? Because Tennessee runs a gimmicky offense that takes advantage of the college playing field.
Yeah.
The field itself. So, how more prepared are you actually going to be?
Yeah, and for everyone, someone in the chat room said Jason Witten went to Tennessee. That's true, but Jason Witten had an exceptional football mind, and he played under Fulmer, who ran more of a pro-style offense. So the circumstances are different. Heupel runs a spread offense, like you said.
And also, you've got to look at Jason Witten was an extraordinary talent.
Yeah.
I mean, let's not, put that aside. This dude's a Hall of Fame level talent. I mean,
yeah, and Witten's going to be a recruit pretty soon. Cooper Witten is one of the top recruits in high school football. I don't know, is he 26 or 27? I'm just curious. 2027, but yeah, Cooper Witten is the son of Jason Witten. He's a junior, and Alabama, Arizona State, Arkansas, Auburn, and Baylor have all offered scholarships. 29 teams have offered Cooper Witten a scholarship, but those are the top 5 at the moment. Alabama, and he's a linebacker. Cooper Witten, Jason's son, is a linebacker. So he's not a tight end, he's a linebacker. But he's considered the top linebacker in the 2027 recruiting class. So, yeah, not...
I'm having a big, sturdy guy. If he's got his dad's body, he might have something.
Right now, he's 6'1", 210, Cooper Witten. If he can add that 40 pounds of muscle over his 4-year development period in college, he could be something. But right now, he's just going to focus on playing football. But he does play high school football in the state of Texas, which is super competitive, as we know.
Yeah, that definitely helps him. That helps him a lot because I've said it for years on this podcast. There are 2 states that I look at where you have the most competitive high school football, and that's Ohio and Texas. If you're in either one of those, you got a shot, and you got a hell of a shot. And you're the son of one of the greatest tight ends ever played the game. Now that kind of helps.
Yep. So Gunnar Rivers and Cooper Witten are both, Jason Witten and Philip Rivers' sons could both be in the 2030 or 2031 NFL draft, depending on how many years they stay in college. That's interesting. But yeah, we'll get to the next.
I've built up Gunnar Rivers on this podcast before.
We've built him up. We've hyped him up for like 2 or 3 years now.
Yeah, he's a dude that's got something. I would say he's better than any Manning that's coming through the pipeline right now.
I agree with that sentiment entirely. And I think Marshall Manning's going to end up being better than Arch. Marshall is Peyton's youngest son. He's like, I think he's like 13. He's still in middle school. So we're not going to talk about Marshall for quite a while. But I just have a feeling Gunnar's going to be better than both the Mannings. And I think Marshall's going to be better than Arch. Just a prediction. I don't have a crystal ball. I'm not a psychic. It's just a prediction. I think Marshall's going to end up being better than Arch.
I saw Jimmy Haslam, who's a close personal friend of the Manning, shake his head at how Arch was playing. That told me everything I need to know about Arch because Jimmy Haslam's not going to disrespect his close personal friend from the Manning family for any reason. When he shook his head, that told me everything I needed to know about Arch. Because Jimmy Haslam, if he's saying no, I don't care what I feel about how good Jimmy Haslam is or how bad he is.
Arch Manning reminds me of J.D. McCoy, the freshman quarterback on Friday Night Lights. I don't know why, but he does. And it's not...
Arch does have something that J.D. did. Arch is very athletic.
Yes.
So I will give Arch that.
Yes.
It's just that in letting him is somebody who is basically giving the thumbs down to a good friend's family member.
Yep.
And that is just, that's hurtful, dude. It's like, when you give a thumbs down to somebody who you have spent countless hours with, that his family member, that is like the death nail. I don't care what you think about their scouting or their thought process. That is just something you don't do unless
Yep.
there is something deeply disappointing about that person.
Yep. And the final tight end that had a Pro Bowl grade is Georgia tight end Oscar Delp. And Delp was the backup to Bowers. Now he's the starter. This is his second season as the starting tight end at Georgia. And Oscar Delp, he's got a third-round grade. He's a senior this year. He was a sophomore when Bowers was a junior, a freshman when Bowers was a sophomore. So, Oscar Delp is somebody that it has been very steady. He has been very consistent, but at the same token, outside of a few games, he hasn't really flashed.
Delp is going to be a very good role player at tight end in this league for a long time. He may even be a very good starter, but he's going to go from team to team doing it. Unless he just catches on with a team that really fits his skill set well, and they just say, hey, we don't need to draft tight end to replace him because he's good enough. I mean, he's going to be one of those guys. He's just going to stick around, do his job, do a damn good job at it, and he's going to have a long career. But I don't see anything special in it.
So basically a Jonnu Smith type player who started out in Tennessee, then went to Atlanta, now is on Pittsburgh, played in Miami, Chicago. That's basically what we're looking at here with Oscar Delp. A really good role player, low-end tight end one like Jonnu.
He's going to have his moments. He's going to have some really good games. He's going to have some poor games. He's going to block really well. He's going to catch what's thrown to him. He's just going to be this big straight guy. A lot like Jonnu Smith, like you said. He is just going to be able to do his job. And, that's going to be his career. And it's a good career.
Yeah.
I hope he's got a nice long career. And I would draft him in the third round if I needed a tight end. He's one of those guys I could work with. So, I mean, he's going to be a good player for a long time.
Yeah, and every tight end with a potential grade of 89 or 88, we put him in the fourth round. Luke Hasz is the starting tight end at Ole Miss, but he's been recovering from an injury. So he hasn't really played this year. So... And there's another Ole Miss tight end, Daquan Wright, who I have in round 6, but he's also on this list. Matt Lauder, the Boise State tight end, is on this group. But an SMU tight end, R.J. Maryland, who would have been a fifth last year, went back to SMU. He now is a fourth-round grade. So those are the tight ends with the 89 potential. And then you're looking at some other guys like Jack Veiling, Michigan State. I've got for an 88 potential. Kenyon Sadiq, the Oregon tight end, I have an 88 potential on as well. But I've seen Kenyon Sadiq in the first round of the Patriots of some mock drafts. I don't understand the thought process there. I like Sadiq, but I also think he's being overhyped by the media to a degree, similarly to how Jermaine Gresham was overhyped in 2010. That was the Gronkowski draft, by the way, guys. So just saying, the Jimmy Graham Gronkowski draft.
Gresham did have a few highly productive years.
He did. He did. In his defense, he did. But compared to the other tight ends, Gronkowski and Jimmy Graham, he was a disappointment. Wasn't a bust, but he was a disappointment for a first-round pick when you consider that draft produced Gronkowski and Graham. And that's not on him. It's just those guys were that good.
And we're not going to mention Hernandez because obvious reasons.
If you want to watch Aaron Hernandez, you can check out there was FS1 made a TV show about Aaron Hernandez, and the coach that was playing Belichick listened to a lot of Bon Jovi. So yeah, if you want to watch the Aaron Hernandez show, definitely go watch it on Hulu. It's on Hulu. It's on FS1. Go watch it on Hulu.
As much as we talk about background checks, that's the most gross failure of every NFL team in just missing probably the greatest red flags you could possibly miss on any player in any draft at any time. Isn't that like the epitome of failure by the NFL and how they do background checks? I mean, that was just mind-blowing.
So basically, one of Belichick's college scouts said, should we take Geno Atkins in the 4th round? And Belichick's like, no, he'll be there with our next pick. And then the Patriots took Aaron Hernandez over Geno Atkins, and Atkins got picked by the Bengals a few spots later. So that's how close it was. The Patriots, there were scouts on the Patriots that wanted Geno Atkins, and Belichick's like, nah, we got to get another tight end. And he overruled them.
Players had a long career with no problems, even though he wasn't a star. And the other one, well, you can watch the documentary for that.
Yeah, but I just think it's funny how I don't think Belichick dismissed the scout outright, but on the show on FX, Belichick dismisses the scout who says, shouldn't we take a look at Geno Atkins? And it's true. The Patriots were looking at Atkins with that 4th round pick that they drafted Aaron Hernandez with. I don't think the part about Belichick dismissing the scout was true, but they had him do that in the show just to make it look realistic. So, but yeah, the FS1 show about Aaron Hernandez, FX.
So, I don't think Greg Belichick or the scout for the Hernandez situation.
Yeah, it's called American Sports Story.
32 teams failed at that background check because somebody was going to take them if Belichick did. So that am I going to,
Yeah, it's called American Sports Story. It's got 10 45-minute episodes on Aaron Hernandez, and episode 8 is called Odin. And it's on Hulu. If you want to watch the Aaron Hernandez American Sports Story show on Hulu, okay? All right, I'm not going to give Aaron Hernandez any more attention than it warranted.
For me, it's the scouting and the background checks and the ultimate failure. And I think this is what led a lot of teams to hiring FBI agents to oversee their scouting, is because, and their background checks, or former FBI agents, is because of this.
Yeah.
And I think that's what led to a lot of these teams hiring those former FBI agents, because they've got clearance that regular guys don't. And I think this was why we're seeing a lot of the advanced background checks that we are today in the NFL.
Yep. And then the final tight end with a 4th round grade is Texas Tech tight end Terrence Carter Jr. And Terrence Carter Jr., another piece in this Texas Tech offense that
I like him. I do like him. I think he has a higher potential than you give him credit for. I think he's more raw, but at the same time, I think better feeling than a lot of people give him credit for. I think he'd be a Pro Bowl player if he goes to the right scheme.
Yep.
He goes to the Patriots, I think he's a Pro Bowl. If he goes to a team like Tennessee, I think he will be a Pro Bowler. And that's under the Tennessee scheme we got right now. I don't know what they're going to bring in as head coach. So that may change.
Yep.
But, depending on where he goes, he can be a Pro Bowler.
I've got 3 tight ends with 5th round grades. We're going to start with the Maryland tight end, Dorian Fleming. He has been a security blanket for freshman quarterback Malik Washington this season. I really like what he has to offer. I've got an 87 for potential. I have a higher grade on Fleming than I did on Chigoziem Okonkwo. And Okonkwo went in the 4th round. So while I do have a 5th round grade on Fleming, I think his upside's higher than Okonkwo's. So that should say something.
I think Fleming's got a hell of a future. I think these 4th round guys, from what we got on now, may have a better future than most of the 1st and 2nd round guys you do out there.
Yeah, Carter was my final 4th round player. Kenyon Sadiq, I've seen him listed as the number 1 tight end in some mock drafts. Carter was the final 4th round tight end, and Fleming was the first tight end with a 5th round grade. So
it's like, so I think 3rd through 5th round guys have a better upside than what we're running with in the 1st and 2nd round.
that's interesting. And another Cincinnati tight end that made this list, who I like more than the Cincinnati tight end that was drafted in 2023, is Joe Royer. Joe Royer, he could be, I had an 87. I think I had an 8. I don't remember. I was not high on Kelsey coming out of Cincinnati, but he made me look like an idiot. There are a few players that have made me look like idiots in previous drafts. But at the same time, once they got the 2nd contract, all their weaknesses that I thought they had in college unraveled. With Kelsey, it hasn't been that way at all. He's the exception to that rule.
So far, your Kelsey Bannon thing is working out. So don't be too pessimistic, because you might be one right on that one. So don't be too pessimistic about yourself. You're still good for another.
Yeah, Joe Royer though. But Kelsey's predecessor at Cincinnati was Brent Selleck. So you had Selleck, you had Kelsey. Those guys were peak tight ends for Cincinnati's football program, and then they had a bunch of guys who were okay. They had a tight end drafted in 2023. But Royer is probably the best tight end Cincinnati's had since Kelsey. I don't think he's as good as Kelsey's been in the NFL level, of course, but I don't expect Royer to become that. But I'm just saying, he could be a nice 5th round player that develops into a starter like Brent Selleck was back in the day. Royer is pretty good. I mean, outside of Corleone, the only other player on Cincinnati that I think is guaranteed to get drafted is the corner and Royer. So that says a lot. I think Royer might be Cincinnati's best player on offense, and they did beat Iowa State a few weeks ago. That may have been last week too. And then Lake
The big thing I think about Royer, I'm not as high on him as you are, but I do agree that he is probably the best tight end since the glory days.
Yeah.
That were coming up there. So I'm not as high on him. I think he's a good player. But I think this is where we start to see the decline in these tight ends.
Yeah, and then the final 5th round tight end was Lake McCree out of USC.
McCree is hard to judge because USC quarterbacks, I think, are so damn bad right now.
Yeah.
So he's a tough cookie.
I got him in round 5, and then I've got 2 tight ends in round 6. Shimon Metayer, Arizona State tight end, is my first round 6 tight end with an 86 potential out of 99. And then Daquan Wright out of Ole Miss is the next guy on the list. Daquan Wright.
I've got Wright ahead. I think Wright may be a late pick.
Interesting. And Wright's taken advantage of Luke Haas being injured. He's taken advantage of that and really run with this tight end 1 spot. So I got to give him credit for taking advantage of that opportunity he's been presented with.
A lot of the best players are players that took advantage of a situation.
That's true.
We've got players in the NFL, not only at tight end, wide receiver, and historically, you think Tom Brady would have been with Tom Brady if he didn't take advantage of Drew Bledsoe, who was a top 5 quarterback in the NFL at the time, going down to stop smashing him out of bounds and rupturing internal organs and causing internal bleeding?
No.
Come on. It's like you take advantage of what you're given. It doesn't have to be the best situation. It doesn't have to feel right. It doesn't even have to look right. But if you take advantage of it, if you get your shot and you take advantage of it, who the hell is going to argue with you?
Yep. And then 7th round, Alex Bauman, the Miami Hurricanes tight end, headlines the 7th round group. Bauman, I do like his blocking. I like Bauman more than Elijah Arroyo, but at the same token, his production this year as tight end 1 has not been great. And Arroyo was the Seahawks' 2nd round pick. He had a very strong Senior Bowl. And while I didn't like his upside, he was so dominant at the Senior Bowl that got him picked where he was picked. And then Amari Niblack, the Texas A&M tight end, is number 20 on this list. Bauer Sharp at LSU is tight end 21. In round 7, Eli Raridon, Notre Dame tight end. Round 7, Garrett Oakley, the Kansas State tight end that William and I liked, is tight end 23. And then the 2 tight ends, we have 1 tight end from Wyoming and 1 tight end from Georgia. And John Michael Gillenborg is the Wyoming tight end. And then Lawson Lucky out of Georgia wraps up this round 7 group. So this group has some talent in it. But this, for me, I feel like this draft has 7 rounds of quality talent at tight end. But for Joey, it sounds like rounds 3 through 5. That's the sweet spot of this. Maybe rounds 3 through 6, since I have Daquan Wright in round 6. But it sounds like from Oscar Delp at 7 to Daquan Wright at 18, that's the sweet spot for you with the tight ends in this draft. From tight end 7 to tight end 18, that's the sweet spot for you when it comes to this year's draft.
Yeah, because I am not big on some of the guys that are, I guess at this point, considered commercially acceptable for the first few rounds. I'm just not high on them.
Yeah.
I think they're 3rd or 4th round picks at best. But then some of these guys that are you get in the 3rd or 4th round, I'm like, dude, these are second round talents. So it is kind of, so if they end up being a 3rd round pick or a 4th round pick you can project, I'm like, man, that's your sweet spot right there. If you get these guys who are not projected to be the top guys, and you get them in the middle round, that might be a sweet spot where you can get a very good player, maybe better than the ones in the 1st and 2nd round.
Yeah, and last week I moved Carson Beck into the top 10, but he threw 4 interceptions against Miami, so I'm updating that right now to make sure that's congruent with some of the data. And Sellers, he had a bad game against LSU, but he didn't lose to a team that I expect him to beat, so I'm not going to move him out of the 1st round yet because I think the arm talent is really good, and Beck I am going to move back. But yeah, this quarterback group, I've got Nussmeier's the only QB I've still got a top 5 grade on. And then
I had an interesting take on Sellers earlier, I think it was this morning.
Yeah.
That he was the prototypical guy. They compared him to Dante Culpepper and said, he is the guy that's going to elevate you to the next level as a team, but he's also the guy that is going to try to make plays to the point that he runs you into trouble.
You could get Anthony Richardson. You could get Dante Culpepper. Lenora Sellers is like the mystery box on Family Guy. You don't know what you're getting.
The difference is Lenora Sellers played more games in college than Anthony Richardson.
Yeah.
Before the end of last year.
That's true.
So there's more experience there. And he's seen more and he's been coached up more than Anthony Richardson was. So it's not just going to be taken on pure ability and potential.
So there's not a guy who I have in my top 5 outside of Nussmeier. I'd put Mendoza in round 1, but I gotta see him throw for 300 yards against one team. It doesn't have to be every game, okay? I got to see him throw for 300 yards in one game this season. I'm not going to ask him to throw for 300 yards every game, but I got to see him do it at least once before I move him into round 1. But he's passed every other portion of the eye test outside of that. So if he does that, I will move him into round 1. If he doesn't, I'm going to leave him behind Klubnik, but I've got Jalen Daniels is now in round 3. And the only reason I moved Aller down to round 4 is because of the season-ending injury. If he had lost to Northwestern but stayed healthy, he would have been in round 3 with Jalen Daniels. But now you're going to have medicals with Aller in addition to those ugly losses. So that's why I think Aller's a day 3 guy now. Because not only do you have the ugly losses on your resume, you also have the season-ending injury, so teams are going to have medical concerns about Aller now. And Aller's basically the one player who's lost the most money in the draft since Matt Barkley, because Matt Barkley went from a 1st to a 5th or 6th round pick, and Aller's probably going to go from a 1st to a day 3 pick too.
I'm not going to get too far into this, but I am hearing that right now, Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry are on the same page that Shedeur is going to be the franchise guy for the Browns. So that might also take those quarterbacks down, because if the Browns take a offensive tackle,
I don't think the Browns are going to take a quarterback early. They're gonna wait for a guy like Aller in day 3. If Aller falls to day 3, like I'm describing, I think they would pick him then, but he would still have to compete with Sanders and Gabriel for the job next year. That's basically what I'm thinking they would do.
I'm hearing that Jimmy Haslam and Andrew Berry both want Shedeur to be the franchise guy, but whether or not, we're both thinking the same thing. These guys are going to fall because everybody says Browns are going to take quarterback. Browns are going to take quarterback. Browns are going to take quarterback. These guys fall.
I think Klubnik or Aller, one of those two, has to fall to day 3 for the Browns to even seriously consider a quarterback, because they have so many other needs right now. They do. The Browns have so many other needs besides quarterback.
I agree, but the Browns have the worst, by far, offensive tackle tandem playing this weekend of anybody in the NFL. Not even close. They need an offensive tackle. They made very well because the best offensive tackle in the league.
Yep.
Back next year. Simply because, you know what? They ain't got it. They ain't got one. And we without an offensive tackle. Not a damn one of them, because they're going to get beaten to a pulp.
Yep. And Miller Moss had a great game against Miami, but I'm going to leave him where I have him as QB 18, but he could move up as well. It's going to be interesting to see how this unfolds. But I think right now I've got to see one 300-yard game from Mendoza. And if he beats Ohio State in the Big Ten championship, that'll probably win him the Heisman. That would be enough to probably move him into round 1 as long as he threw for. But we got to see either 300 yards or he beats Ohio State in the Big Ten title.
There's something else I've been hearing. Miami, if they fire Mike McDaniel, which if they lose to Cleveland, I'm hearing they're going to do, they may be looking to replace Tua, which in that situation, you may jump those quarterbacks up, and instead of Cleveland, look for a quarterback, you may be looking at Miami. So there's a twist in there, twisty twist.
I don't think Miami's going to get rid of Tua. I don't think they're going to get rid of him, but if they hire a new coach.
I don't think so, but, when you get a new coach, that's
And
what's going to happen.
And right now, if the Steelers don't draft a quarterback, right now, trading for Tua or trading for Kyler Murray are your top options. Those aren't great top options to have, but those are your options. Or get QB in free agency.
And I also believe, Kevin Stefanski's probably going to get fired up this year from everything I've been hearing. I've been hearing Mike Tomlin, his old buddy from the Vikings days, may be defending him because he wants him as the OC, which would make Tua, because Stefanski likes Tua, so that may make it a possibility that the Steelers, if that happens, trade for Tua to build around. So your prediction may come true. Maybe it's out there and it's possible.
Yeah, I know a lot of people like Ty Simpson and Dante Moore. I think Moore needs another year of college, and even though he's had a really good start to his career at Oregon, and Ty Simpson, we're putting him at number 1 overall. What the hell are we doing, people?
Yeah, neither one of those guys I think are number 1 material. But it's like I've just been hearing so much going on with what's going on in the ASC with the coaches. I'm like, oh, you have that theory. Guess what? I can actually put that together with something because of what I've been hearing. And so I'm kind of supporting your theories here, Chris.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
We're working on different sides of the same coin.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so yeah, before I get the NFL predictions, I'll get to them later, but I did talk about the NBA playoff matchups in my simulation, so I have the same 4 teams getting around 2 in the East: Cleveland, Milwaukee, Orlando, Atlanta, and then the West I've got Lakers, Thunder, Timberwolves, Rockets getting to round 2. I've got Lakers and Thunder in the conference finals. I've got the Magic beating the Bucks to play the Cavs, and I went Lakers over Magic. I think the Magic, if they get a third crack at the Cavs, they beat them this time, but it's going to be very close, very tight series. I think any of those 4 or 5 teams could get out of the East. It's very wide open with Halliburton out for the year and with Tatum out for the year. The East is a lot more wide open than it's been in previous years.
What I understand, the Miller Ball, what I've seen, has been balling out. Okay, not as a shooter or a star or anything, but as a field point guard, he has taken that role. He's basically said, I'm not going to do all this other stuff that I was known for in other places. I'm just going to be a pure point guard. And from what I've seen, he's been excelling. He's just been doing nothing but trying to...
Charlotte has a good starting 4, but they're starting center Miles Plumlee or Mason Plumlee, which is not good. Center is the only spot they got to upgrade. And I think with one more draft, Charlotte will be a contender next season, but they've got 2 first-round picks in 2026. They've got their first-round pick, and they own a first-round pick from the Orlando Magic. So Charlotte has 2 first-round picks in 2026. I think they will get the last 2 pieces of that puzzle by next year, and they'll be a playoff team in the 2026-2027 season, but they'll be in a rebuild for one more year.
I just think the Cavs are finding their niches with their players, and their players are improving. And if LaMelo Ball actually embraces just being a pass-first point guard...
LaMelo Ball is on Charlotte. Lonzo Ball is on Cleveland. Yeah.
Can't they at least have names that don't start with the same letter?
Yeah, Lonzo, LiAngelo, LaMelo. They all start with the same letter.
Take differentiate a little bit here and there. Maybe one of them.
I think the dad is LeVar Ball, so they all have L's. The dad and the sons.
It's L's. It's like, guys, just give me the rest a little bit with the L's, please. Romero.
Lonzo.
God damn it. Okay? If he embraces that good point guard thing that he has in the preseason, behind Darius Garland, I think the Cavs could potentially take off because now they will have a pure playmaker to go along with the shooters that they have on the second team. And potentially be able to spare Garland with some of the minutes that he was playing last year.
Yeah.
So it's
Lonzo Ball, yes. But who do you like in the West? I mean, just curious who you like in the West. It could be the Thunder again, but I also feel like somebody's going to humble the Thunder, whether it's the Timberwolves or the Lakers. Maybe it's the Rockets, but Emmanuel told me Freddie VanVleet's out for the season, and Kyrie Irving's out for the year with the Mavericks. So I don't know what's what.
I'm going to go with one that I kind of went with last year during playoff time, but I'm going to go with the Lakers because LeBron James announced that he was going to retire after this year. Look, I've never been a huge LeBron James fan, but I acknowledge that he has been a pillar of this generation. And I have no doubt that he's going to want to go out with a blaze of glory. And the Western Conference ain't that good right now. Okay, the NBA Eastern Conference, well, during the 80s and 90s, it was called the NBA Beast. During the Bronze Early era, first 15 years, it was called the Eastern Conference. Well, right now, it's kind of back to being a little bit of a beast. So LeBron's going to have the opportunity with the Lakers to ramrod through the West, especially with those injuries that you mentioned. He's going to have a chance to ramrod through with the Lakers and get to the final. I don't think he wins it, but I think he goes out with a blaze of glory.
I've got LeBron beating the Magic in the finals. Now, if he plays the Cavs, I think the Cavs do have the depth to beat the Lakers. So, and I think the Thunder also have a good starting five. So I'm looking at those two teams as well.
If he plays the Magic, he goes out in game 2 with a cramp. You know, LeBron cramps a lot, man. He spends a lot of time on the bench during the season with cramps. He has for 20 years. I mean, he needs to drink more water, eat a few more bananas.
This is just strange. Usually Big Ten Network airs football games at noon. They're airing Maryland, Ohio State, and college soccer. And this is the same announcers from the Michigan UCLA game last night in Ann Arbor are at Columbus today. So, yeah, I mean, it's just strange to see that because usually college soccer is reserved for Friday nights and Sunday afternoons. There's usually not a college soccer game on at Saturday at noon. And if there is, it's a smaller school like a Robert Morris or a Duquesne. It's not like a bigger program like an Ohio State.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. I agree.
Maryland already with a shot on goal. We're not even a minute into the game. But yeah, I'll be flipping back and forth. The one benefit college soccer has is there's no commercials until halftime. There's commercials pregame, there's commercials postgame, but there are no commercials for that entire 45-minute period. That is the one thing I like about soccer, whether MLS or college soccer, is once the half starts, there are no commercials for the entire half. Okay, you're not going to get that with any other sport. You're not going to get that with hockey. You're going to have stoppage time.
That's actually very concerning because that means they don't have a lot of freaking sponsors, which means they don't have a lot of money coming in.
Well, the Maryland guy got the ball past the goalie, but one of Ohio State's defenders was in the net, and he intercepted the pass with his body. So that prevented Maryland from scoring. So they're debating whether now they've got instant replay in college soccer, so they're debating whether this is a goal or not. The ref signaled his hand upward like it's a first down, so that tells me this might be a goal. I do have the game on mute. Yep, that upward motion, which is a first down in football, that's a goal in soccer. So yes, you learned something new by having the game on mute. But yeah, Maryland did score there because the ball went past the net, but the Ohio State player picked up the ball, tried to stop the goal from going in with their body, and it wasn't the goalie. So they counted that as a clean goal for Maryland, and Maryland's still undefeated in college soccer. Duke was undefeated until last night. They lost 3-0 to Clemson, but yeah, I'm going to go ABC because LSU Maryland is on LSU Vanderbilt's on ABC. So I'm going to be rotating back and forth between those games. But yeah, Joey's going Cavs, Lakers. I'm going Lakers, Magic. Emmanuel Watson went Lakers over Knicks. I think we could see Lakers over Knicks in maybe 2027 if LeBron comes back. But I think LeBron's going to retire in 2027. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll definitely see what happens there. Decision day in MLS is today, and then we'll dive into some NFL picks. Flacco did play out of his mind against the Steelers. That was fun to watch. But yeah, the Union have the 1 seed locked up. FC Cincinnati and Miami are tied with 62 points, but Miami has 18 wins. FC Cincinnati has 19 wins. So because Cincinnati has more wins, they would get home field over Miami. And I picked Miami to win the MLS Cup at the beginning of the year. Joey picked Cincinnati. Again, we'll have all the matchups outside of the play-in round next Saturday, but today's decision day. It's the final week in the regular season. Right now, New York City FC and Charlotte FC both have 56 points. And since Charlotte has 18 wins, New York only has 17 wins. Charlotte gets home field, which means Dave Tepper gets to host a playoff game in 2025 since Charlotte FC and Carolina Panthers both play at Bank of America Stadium and are both owned by Dave Tepper. So Dave Tepper gets to host a playoff game unless Charlotte loses today. And Charlotte plays a weaker opponent at home. They play a non-playoff team at home. So Nashville is the 6th seed. Orlando is the 7th seed. The play-in game right now is projected to be the Chicago Fire, who have not won a playoff game since 2009, and the Columbus Crew. And that would be at Soldier Field on Wednesday, if that were the game. And the last time Chicago Fire won a playoff game, it was against the Columbus Crew in 2009. Okay, outside of the Buffalo Sabres, the Fire have the longest drought for winning a playoff game. They've got the longest drought in all of pro sports. Sabres have not won a playoff game since 06-07. They've not made the playoffs since 2010-11. Fire have not won a playoff game since 2009. They have a longer playoff drought than the White Sox or the Bears, to put things into perspective. And they just have to find a way to win this. I know it's a play-in game. It shouldn't count as an actual playoff game. This is more of a playoff qualifier than an actual playoff series. But, yeah, that's the East. The Western Conference just kind of sucks in the MLS right now because Western Conference with a good starting 11, good 10 starters, and a good goalie. There's not that team that's complete on paper, whereas the East, you have Columbus, you have Chicago, you have Orlando, you have Nashville, you have Miami, you have Cincinnati, and you have Philadelphia, who has the 1 seed with Andre Blake. You've got like 7 good teams. Charlotte was pretty good last year. They've got most of their starters back. So yeah, and they made the playoffs as a qualifier last year. New York City FC is probably the weakest team in the group of 9, and they were the 2021 MLS Cup champions. So yes, the Eastern Conference in soccer is just better than the West right now. Joey, I picked the Galaxy to make the MLS Cup, but they had the worst. They started 0-16. They tied the Browns and Buccaneers for worst start by an MLS team, and they were a game away from being 0-17. If you count the losses and ties as losses, they were a game away from 0-17 before they won their first game. So Orlando no longer has the number 1 pick with the Galaxy winning. The number 1 pick will be decided in today's game between DC United and Atlanta United FC. So that DC United does not have a striker with 10 or more goals. They do not have a midfielder with 10 or more assists. They've only recorded 3 shutouts this year, and their goalie only has 79 saves. Usually you want your goalie to have 100 saves. So DC United's just a mess everywhere. So that's the team that deserves the number 1 pick more than anyone else. But if Atlanta loses to DC United, Atlanta gets the number 1 pick. Atlanta has 27 points. So does the LA Galaxy and Sporting Kansas City. But Atlanta's 5 wins are fewer than the Galaxy's 6 or Sporting Kansas City's 7 wins. So Atlanta would get the number 1 pick. And if Atlanta gets the number 1 pick, for the first time since 2001, Arthur Blank will have the number 1 pick in the draft. Yep, because when Atlanta entered the MLS, they picked second in 2017 and got Miles Robinson. They did get the better player of the 2 expansion teams, but Minnesota had the number 1 pick the year Minnesota and Atlanta entered the MLS. So, yeah, I mean, Arthur Blank could have the number 1 pick in a sports draft for the first time in 24 years. So that is significant. And who owns DC United? Right now, it is Jason Levian and Steve Kaplan. They are the controlling shareholders. Mark Ingram is a minority owner of DC United. That's very interesting. Former NFL running back Mark Ingram is on the ownership group of DC United. That's pretty cool. I did not know Mark Ingram was a minority owner. But, yeah, before we get to Ingram being a minority owner, I'm looking at Yo Gotti, Robert Hemrich, Adam Genry, David Lissy, Ed Shapiro, Ian Shapiro, Jake Silverstein, Devin Talbot. So that's your ownership group for DC United. And I'm pretty certain Arthur Blank still owns Atlanta United FC, but I will double check that. Arthur Blank is still the majority owner. Not only is he the founder, he's still the owner of the team. So he hasn't sold the team. So yeah. I kind of want Arthur Blank to get the number 1 pick, mainly because DC United was a big rivalry with the LA Galaxy back when the league first started. And the last time DC United had the number 1 pick was 2004. 2004, DC United took a highly touted star player named Freddie Adu, had a great rookie year, won MLS Cup as a rookie, but then he ended up fizzling out after that. So, and became one of the biggest busts in MLS history, MLS Super Draft history. So, you know, at least he won a championship though, but yeah. If DC United loses, they would get the number 1 pick for the first time since 2004 when they took Freddie Adu. And Atlanta United would have the number 1 pick for the first time in history. But the game's at Mercedes-Benz Superdome in Atlanta. Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. And that's why the Falcons are on the road this week against San Francisco, Joey, because it's decision day. It's the final home game of the regular season. And yeah, I mean, but you know, it'll be interesting to see what happens. And Atlanta goalie Brad Guzan is going to retire after this season. And this is a ridiculously good goalie draft. 6 first-round goalies in this year's MLS draft. So If Atlanta doesn't get the number 1 pick, they might draft a goalie, since 41-year-old goalie Brad Guzan set to retire after this year. So, yeah, I mean, anytime you can play a professional sport into your 40s, that's very good. I'm just curious who's older. Interesting. Brad Guzan's older than Joe Flacco. Flacco's only 40. Guzan's 41. That's very interesting. And Brad Guzan joined Atlanta when he was when they were an expansion team in 2017 as the starting goalie, and he's been with the team for 8 years now. So that's very interesting. That's very interesting that Guzan's gonna retire after this year. But yeah, that's still pretty impressive, though. I mean, a goalie playing in the MLS till he's 41, that's good. That's great for him. And then Yager's still playing on Ratiri Kladno. He's 53. I said it's like, yeah, I texted you. He's not a cyborg. Yeah, Guzan, he played 25 games this year out of 33, and he's had 2 clean sheets, 2 shutouts. But yeah, he went from 113 saves last year to only 84. But Atlanta's not the same team without Miles Robinson, and yeah, we'll see what happens with MLS. Next week we'll have downs of playoff games, but it's the regular season right now. It's the final day of the regular season. The games don't start until 6 p.m. And I think part of the problem is the games aren't televised anymore. Outside of the MLS Cup first few months of the season, the games aren't televised. You have to get Apple TV's MLS season pass in order to watch the games. And I think that has caused MLS's audience to shrink immensely. And it explains why the ratings were down. And the fact that the MLS Cup's on the same day as the SEC Championship, you can't pick both. You can only watch one or the other. That's another reason why the ratings are down. But yeah, LSU 3rd and 10. Nussmeier incomplete on 3rd and 13. But Nussmeier did get LSU into field goal range. So yeah. On that note, we'll get to our NFL predictions, and then we'll sign off. Unless you want to talk about Flacco's game briefly, Joey. Because I was debating between Flacco and Chase for player of the game. Andrew told me to go with Flacco, and when I watched the tape, I saw Chase drop a few passes that Flacco threw perfectly. So that's why I went with Flacco. So we've had 2 backup quarterbacks this year.
Flacco was joking in the press conference. He's like, yeah, I only knew about half the playbook. I didn't even know what I was doing. It's like, I was making plays on the fly. And how bad does that embarrass Kevin Stefanski? How much of a humiliation is that? That he just goes off Cleveland, who says, Kevin Stefanski's like, he's washed. And then the Bengals are like, yeah, no. And he goes out there and does that to the Steelers. And with the exact same game plan that Stefanski had with Dylan Gabriel. I mean, come on, that is absolutely humiliating. To Stefanski, that Flacco would do that. It was. I'm a Joe Flacco fan, so I thought it was glorious. But he has to be sitting there fuming.
Stefanski looks like one of the characters in Breakfast Brawl. Breakfast Brawl is basically a parody of Mason Super Punch Out with breakfast items. You've got the raisin bran cereal bowl, muffin top of muffin. You've got the sausage, egg, cheese biscuit, and then you got poppy seed to bagel. There's like an angry bagel with boxing gloves. And if Kevin Stefanski shaved his hair off, he would look exactly like poppy seed bagel. So, He looks like yeah, but yeah, the sausage egg cheese biscuit sweats before you knock him out in the boxing game. So I think the biscuit's probably a more appropriate breakfast comp for Stefanski in this scenario. Because Stefanski looks like he's sweating after getting knocked out. When you knock out the muffin, it dreams about horses. Dreams about horses. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to make any more breakfast brawl references, but yeah, Stefanski looks about as defeated as one of the characters in Breakfast Brawl. That's all I'm going to say on that, Joey.
I want a spicy chicken biscuit now. Thank you, Chris.
It's a video game. It's basically a parody of Mike Tyson's Super Punch Out with breakfast items. That's basically what Breakfast Brawl is. So that was I did not think the game would load on that page. I just wanted to see what there was cheat codes to the game. I swear that's all I wanted to see, if there were cheat codes to the game. There are, but that music you heard, that's the Infus Brawl. But yeah, let's get to some Week 7 predictions, and then we can sign off here. Will Weeks is out this week for LSU, but Nussmeier did get a field goal, and yes, William. Yeah. So yeah, me, Tony, Mario, and Joey were literally the only ones that took the Bengals. I took the Bengals because I felt like Steelers were due to lose a game. I know they beat the Browns, but it was a very unspectacular win due to the Browns' piss poor offense versus the Steelers being that great. So now Tony Mario's tied with West for second at 60 and 34, and I am only a game behind Tony and West. I'm in fourth, but I'm only a game back of Tony and West for second. The Rams and Jaguars, I took the Rams. Puka Nakua is out this week, and I think it's going to be very hard for the passing game to get going for the Rams without Puka Nakua involved. The Rams are favored, which I don't understand why they're favored. If Puka Nakua is out of the lineup, I can't think of one reason why they would win. I mean, the Jaguars have one of the best defenses in the league. They're going to shut down Kyron Williams, and they're going to dare the Rams to beat they're going to dare Stafford to beat their passing game without Nakua. But yeah, because
it's like Nakua's out and Greg Newsom is having a career year. So, I mean, that is a massive advantage for the Jags.
Jacksonville's secondary did not look good against Seattle when they replaced Campbell with Newsom, but in their defense, Newsom's on a much friendlier contract. And this gives the Jaguars the justification to draft in their corner early too, if they don't like what they see from Newsom enough to give him an extension. So we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, I'm going 28-21 Jaguars. The over-under is 44.5. I think the Jaguars do enough to win this game. And I'm because I remember in week 5 before they traded Tyson Campbell to the Browns, Travis Hunter was playing number 2 corner next to Tyson Campbell for that one game against the Chiefs. So I'm guessing Campbell.
That last week, I give both Tyson Campbell and Greg Newsom a little bit of a pass, because that trade in the middle of the week, it's like, hey guys, you're here. You don't know the playbook, but there you go. There's the game. And that is, well, I get it that corners don't need much time, but man, at least get to play with your teammates for a minute, and they didn't even get to do that.
And to
So,
be fair, Tyson Campbell kept Aaron Rodgers out of the end zone for the entire first half of that game. It was field goals, so in his credit,
let's just give both of those guys a little bit of leeway on the first week, and then we can roast their ass next week.
All right, that's fair enough. I think the only unbeaten in the NHL is the Carolina Hurricanes. That's because Dallas lost to Vancouver. It was a very embarrassing home loss, but we played our backup goalie. We didn't play Ottinger. We played our backup goalie. We played our Ottinger. That's how it works in the NHL. You start your starting goalie for 3 games. You play your backup for 1 game if you're at home and you got a tough road opponent after that home game. That's just how the cycle of goalies works in hockey. But yeah. Jaguars, Rams. Tony, actually, the majority of our staff is taking the Rams despite the injuries. Yumi, Orr, and Kerm are taking the Jaguars. Everybody else picked the Rams. Tracy picked the Rams. Daniel Keyser, Wes, William, and Tony Mario. They all picked the Rams over the Jaguars. Despite the fact that Nakua has been ruled out. And there's only one lock this week. The next game is the Saints and the Bears. Next game is Saints and Bears. I don't know why we have I don't know why Utopia Football Insider's listed. I have not. We might bring Utopia Football Insider with Oren back next season, but right now he's very busy with stuff. I'm very busy with stuff, so that's on hiatus for now. So I didn't even realize on the site, but that's like I'm looking at the Saints Bears game. I think the Saints are going to cover the spread. Bears are going to win, but Spencer Rattler, if you remember, Joey, he got benched for Caleb Williams at Oklahoma. So this game is personal to Spencer Rattler. And the Bears did end up benching. The Bears ended up benching Braxton Jones, their left tackle. Yeah. So Caleb Williams did get benched in week 6 for not Caleb Williams. Braxton Jones got benched in week 6, and Theo Benedict, who wasn't even on the roster at the beginning of the year, second-year player Theo Benedict is now the left tackle for the Bears. So the Bears aren't even playing their second-round draft pick Ozzie Trapillo in that spot. So I do think the Bears
strikes me as.
But it worked. They did beat the Commanders, but the decision to bench Braxton Jones for Theo Benedict, I thought it was because they were going to trade Braxton Jones to another team before his rookie contract went up. But it's actually they benched him for Theo Benedict. And they drafted Trapillo in round 2. But what are your thoughts on that before I get to this game?
Look, I like Benedict, but I do find it concerning that they would start him over their own draft picks.
At left tackle, so yeah. Jalen Johnson's still out at corner, but they do have everybody else healthy. The Bears are favored by 4.5 over the Saints. I think I have the Bears winning 24-23. I think Rattler's going to play well in this game because it's personal to him. Losing the starting quarterback job to Caleb Williams at Oklahoma is personal to him. And this is the first NFL game between Rattler and Caleb Williams. I think Caleb's going to win, but Rattler is going to play well enough for the Saints to cover the spread. And if Caleb Williams plays like he did in the opener, where the Bears get 0 third down conversions in the third and fourth quarter, this is absolutely a game Spencer Rattler and the Saints can steal. So, yeah, but I'll go 24-23 Bears by a point. Everybody took the Bears except for William. He had the Saints in the upset. But that's the thing. William liked Rattler when he wrote for First Round Mock. He did not like Caleb Williams. So, but Bears are probably going to get in as a wild card now because this was the game against the Commanders. We said it back in the summer. The game against the Commanders was the game Caleb Williams needed to win if the Bears were going to sneak in as a wild card this year, and he won that game. So, and that's big from a momentum standpoint because a lot has changed in our projected standings. A lot has changed. Right now, the Bills are still the 1 seed at 15-2, but the seed at 13-4. The Colts are the 3 seed at 11-6. The Ravens are the 4 seed at 10-7, edging out Pittsburgh at 9-8 for the division. The 5 seed at 12-5. The Patriots are the 6 seed, and the Broncos at 10-7 edge out the 9-8 Texans and the 9-8 Jaguars for the last wild card. I think the Jaguars are a better team on paper than Denver, but
Ravens are going to pull off like 9 wins out of their last 12 games.
They are. You're going to be shocked. And we forgot to do the bye weeks for the Ravens and Bills, the mid-season bye weeks, the contracts. So, yeah, we'll do that now, and we'll come back to the rest of these games. Dolphins-Browns will have to wait because I forgot that freaking detail. Yeah, and I think the Ravens are going to pull off a bunch of wins. They're going to have a winning record by the time they play the Steelers after their Thanksgiving game against the Bengals. They're going to win the next 6 in a row because their strength of schedule is a lot easier. But yeah, we'll look at the Ravens and Bills contracts. So I almost forgot to do that. Okay. All right. There's 6 teams on bye weeks next week, though. Only 2 this week. So the Ravens are set at QB with Lamar Rush. They don't lose any running backs to free agency. Henry Hill, Keaton Mitchell, Ali are all going to be back. DeAndre Hopkins and Thielen Wallace are both UFAs after this year. So Hopkins and Wallace are both UFAs in 26. All the Ravens tight ends, Mark Andrews, likely Kolar UFAs. I think the Ravens are going to load up at tight end.
Yeah, I just don't see him playing for anybody but the Ravens, and I'm not sure that they retire.
Andrews and Likely's only 20. Likely's had more injuries this season. Okay, to market value. Okay, we do have market value. $7.2 million. That is the market value of Andrews next season. A meager $7.2 million, which is only half of what the Ravens are paying him right now. I can guarantee you Mark Andrews is not that. So he will probably retire. Would re-sign for that much, but I'm glad Spotrac did update the market value for some of these players. Does Likely have a market value? because we didn't have market values for some of these UFAs in week 4, week 5. Now that we're in week 7, Likely's market value is $10.2 million. So would you rather have Likely Andrews? I figure the Ravens are going to bring back whichever tight end is cheaper. That's who they're going to bring back. Guy walk. So if Andrews is cheaper than Likely, then Likely probably would cost more than Likely. But it's 7.2 for Andrews and 10.2 for 10.2 for Likely. But the Ravens, they didn't use a fifth-year tender on Tyler Linderbaum. Daniel Falele is also UFA. Ben Cleveland, for everyone else. But I'm just curious. $17.9 million. Yeah. The Ravens are going to probably focus on him, but that's not going to leave them with a lot of cap space for 2020. I'm pretty certain the Ravens are not going to have. Let's look at the Ravens 2026 cap space. Ravens have. And here's the thing we found out. He lives in Baltimore with his wife. So if the Ravens get the Bills in the AFC Championship, is calling that game, there's a chance the Ravens beat. There's a chance, Joey. Right now the Ravens have $41 million for 2026. So they have more than enough money. I'm guessing Linderbaum is going to take a good chunk of that contract. Linderbaum, because he's the one guy you have to bring back on the offensive side of the ball among your UFAs. Other guys who are role players, I could see how they would be expendable. Travis Jones is a UFA, the nose tackle. He is a UFA, so you're going to have to replace him. I'm just curious what the market value for him is. They do not have a market value for Travis Jones. That tells me they might replace him in the draft or free agency. What do we got here? Edge rushers, Kyle Van Noy is a UFA, and David Ojabo is also a UFA. But Tavius Robinson's on a rookie more years. He took the starting edge rusher spot at right outside linebacker from Owa. And Roquan will be back. Simpson will be back in the final rookie deal. Teddy Buchanan will still have 3 years on his rookie deal. Ravens are good at inside linebacker. Jair Alexander only signed a 1 year. Still have Marlon Humphrey and Nate Wiggins. TJ Tampa, who's actually started some games this year, will probably take over at nickel corner next season. You'll still need some cornerback depth. And Kyle Hamilton and Starks will be your safeties next year. So really, maybe edge rusher. If Kyle Van Noy leaves, you could draft another edge rusher, move Tavius Robinson over to left outside linebacker. But I'm looking at edge rusher. I'm looking at tight end. Be a big need. I gave the Ravens an right guard in the first round of my mock draft. Looking at edge rusher, nose tackle, right guard as the main positions they want to draft. I think they will get a tight end on day 3. And they might get multiple day 3 tight ends. I mean, if they can acquire another 3rd round pick, they might get multiple tight ends in this draft like they did in 2022. and just reload at the position, because that seems to be something the Ravens really excel at, Joey. So just looking at the Ravens, I think they have stability at a lot of positions, but you're going to have to reload at tight end, right guard, nose tackle, edge rusher, and maybe bring in a nickel corner to push TJ Tampa. But other than that, you're good for next year. I think the Ravens have just enough pieces to where if they get lucky and get over the team started 1-5 and your defense hasn't been great. You got anything you want to add to the Ravens before we get to Buffalo? Okay, spot track. I wanted the Bills. I didn't want the Panthers roster. But yeah. Nussmeier with a dart to Berry and Brown on third down. But yeah, the Ravens, I don't think the Ravens are in trouble because look at their schedule. It is very manageable. I can pull it up briefly before we get to the Bills, but the Ravens' schedule is super manageable. I think they're going to win the division at 10-7, and they're going to go on a heater after the bye week. They get the Bears at home. They get the Dolphins in Thursday Night Football. They get the Ravens and Vikings in Minnesota. They get the Browns in Cleveland, the Jets in Baltimore, and the Bengals without Burrow on Thanksgiving. They can win all 6 of those games. The Bears will probably win, but I think it's going to come back after the bye week, and they're going to go on a tear. I think the toughest opponents in the Ravens' schedule are the Steelers, who they share with the Steelers winning in Baltimore, the Bengals returns, and the Packers. Patriots will be tough too, but I think the Ravens will find a way to beat New England. I mean, their tough games aren't until week 14 this year. So that's one advantage that the Ravens have. Their toughest games aren't until week 14. But I'm going to get
how Lamar's defense is, and they're showing off how old Derek.
But I think Lamar's going to come back in week 8.
That also helps Lamar Jackson's case for MVP, depending on when he comes back, because we're seeing, hey, these guys, but he comes in and they start playing like you said they're going to play. Well, he made these guys look like they were all world beaters.
I also think if the Ravens do end up winning this division over Pittsburgh in week 18, Lamar can't win in the playoffs because he lost the home game to Pittsburgh to Josh Allen. There's going to be that narrative, and it's going to get to the point where Lamar either finally puts it all together and gets the Ravens like Flacco did in the final year of his rookie deal, or everything just unwrapped again. It's going to be one of those two scenarios where he gets the Ravens to a Super Bowl and the Ravens fall apart. And even if the Ravens do get lucky this year and put everything together, I don't think it'll sustain itself. There's just too many holes in the roster entering next season for me to pick the Ravens to repeat, even if they were able to get in the Super Bowl this year. So And then the Bills next, because I have the Bills and the Ravens in the AFC Championship at this moment. If Burrow could be under contract for the Bills next year, Trubisky's under contract. Cook, Ty Johnson, Ray Davis, Bills. The only UFA on the Bills, Elijah Moore, Shakir, Keon Coleman, three receivers back. Curtis Samuel is the number 4 receiver. Number 5, Shavers receiver is back, and you also have Gabriel Davis on the practice squad. Davis, who bombed miserably in Jacksonville. He is making $1,000 on the Bills practice squad. Gabriel Davis went from making millions of dollars to only making $315,000. That's how bad his tenure with the Jaguars was. That he's no longer making 7 digits. He's only making 6 digits. That should say something about Gabriel Davis. But I'm done roasting Gabriel Davis. A little turnover at receiver, but not a lot. Deion Dawkins is back. Edwards and center Connor McGovern are UFAs. So you're going to have to replace Edwards and McGovern in free agency or the draft. And look at the market value of those two lines, because I'm curious. Does either player have a high market value to which the Bills? Holy crap. $20.3 million for David Edwards. There's a reason the Rams let him walk after his rookie deal. It's like Brandon Beane got him on a very good discount deal, but guard David Edwards is $20.3 million, Joey. I mean, okay, million over 3 years is what he's projected to make. $60.9 million over 3 years with a $20.3 million market value. I'm kind of curious who the highest paid guard is. I'm kind of curious who the highest paid guard is.
I don't know. 60 million for a guard.
$60.9 million over 3 years, which is $20.3 million a year. That's for Bills left guard David Edwards. That's the
Here's the thing, because I know
the Antonio's only making $15 million, and Tyler's only making $14.2 million. But there's only
supposed to be making like 20 and 22 million.
Yeah, but they restructured their deals to save cap space, which is very boys. 22 first round pick. Trey Smith's making $23.5 million, making $21 million, and Chris Lidstrom's making $20.5. Basically, Quentin Nelson is only making $20 million with the Colts. So you're basically saying that David Edwards is worth more than Quentin Nelson. And I could not disagree further with that comment. That's basically what Spot Track is saying, that David Edwards is worth more money than Quentin Nelson, the Colts left guard. I could not further disagree with that assessment. And I think Joey. But yeah, that's the thing. Nelson's only making $20 million with the Colts, and his
that's way too much. Way, Martin, you should not be making 23 to 20.
Did with their guard situation on his rookie world. If you're Jerry Jones, you kind of have to overpay to keep talent at this point. But it's like not worth. He's not worth $20.3 million. He's not worth more than Quentin Nelson, in my opinion. Look, David Edwards is a good guard, but he's not a guy you pay $20.3 million a year to keep. So are going to have to draft a left guard. And Bryant might take over for McGovern at center next year. Just curious what the market value for McGovern is. $16.5 million. That is more manageable. But again, I'm kind of curious who the high right now. $49.4 for 3 years. That's the market value for. And I get it. The Bills are really good, but these guys, they might. Only 3 centers make more than $16.5 million. Make with the $17 million with the Packers. Cam Jordan $17 million with the Eagles. That's it. And I like Connor McGovern with his injuries this year. McGovern's currently the 10th highest paid center in the league, $5 million. I don't think being $10 million. $10 million was $1 million and David Andrews, he's a market value of 20 more than the Colts pay Quentin Nelson, and I don't agree with that. I like David. We seem to be on the same page on that one. I don't know if I have all the facts here, but 20. We're not taking anything away from the guy. It's just, are we really? He was a back. Peters was a backup left guard before the Bills left guard left in free agency, and he became the de facto. I say, that's not a good contract. $20.9 million. That's David Andrews is not worth that. Unless someone like Allen wants to restructure to keep him, then you probably have to let him walk. Don't you think? You got any thoughts on the Bills' offensive contracts before we get to the defense?
I think they are overpriced.
I agree. I think they're going to lose David Edwards, and Cedric Van Pran's only making $1 million a year. I think Van Pran's probably going to start at center next year, and you're probably going to have to get a left guard in the draft because, like you said, David Edwards at $20.3 million, he's overpriced. His market value is higher than I think he's worth that much. So, Ed Oliver.
Also, don't forget, these guys are getting older. Okay, we're seeing both in New York and Cleveland, no matter how many young guys they try to put in there, they still got those old guys. The Jets finally got rid of the last several guys. And young guys ain't doing much better. But if you don't do it quickly through the draft, well, you got the guy
outside of McGovern or 20s.
Yeah, but once you hit as a big guy on the offensive line, once you hit like the 8, you're going to start going downhill. Simply because of the beating that's on your knees and your lower back. So you might want to start looking to replace these guys. Doesn't have to be this year, but you might want to start drafting some guys to get ready.
Yeah.
See it time again. The knees start going, and the lower back starts going, the hips start going, you can't turn. And then what good are you? Not much. So they might want to start, thinking about getting some of these guys replaced. If not this year, draft somebody for this year. Maybe draft 2 guys this year. At some point,
Confident Cedric Van Pran can to Buffalo's starting center, and he's only making $1 million a year for the next 2 seasons. So I have confidence in Van Pran. I had a 3rd round grade on him. The Bills took him in round 5. I mean, yeah.
They're 2 promising young centers.
They're only paying him over $1 million. So you owe it to yourself to find out if you have something there.
Exactly. And you're sitting behind some older guys.
So, exactly.
Guys gonna go, and what do you get? You got your opportunity.
3 or 24. Van Pran's only like 23 or 24, so he's very young, and McGovern's like 30 now, so he's the perfect guy to replace Smith at center. And you probably are going to have to draft to replace David Edwards. So, and the other thing you got to consider is he deal with the Bills too. He was a 2023 2nd-round pick out of Florida. Osiris Torrance is probably going to get a contract similar to what Trey Smith's got in Kansas City. So you're probably looking at drafting a left guard, giving Van Pran a shot, and maybe extending Osiris Torrance if Allen wants to keep him on the offensive line. That's what you're looking at with your offensive line. So yeah, neither Bosa or Epineza has a.
Say this. Not every offensive lineman is going to be a Nick, a Joe Batonio, a Jeff Williams. They're just not built that way. So they're not going to go into their mid-30s. Okay, so you just got to start thinking a little earlier when it comes to offensive linemen, because these guys don't grow on trees.
I agree. The only player that the Bills have in their 30s, McGovern's only 28. I thought 30. Deion Dawkins 31. And Deion Dawkins is under contract 28. But the thing is, Dawkins has been very steady to his mid to late 30s. But you don't have a good backup to him. You have in the 7th round of Central Florida. Epineza and Bosa are both UFAs. Neither player is a market value. Michael Hocht is actually under contract next year. Michael Hocht's a good backup defensive end, but I don't think he's a good starter. But you're paying Hocht $7.5 million next year. You're paying Ross Jackson's on a rookie deal for the next 3 years at $1.5 million in 2026, 1.8. I think Landon Jackson, Michael Hocht are probably going to compete for the edge rusher job next to Russo if the Bills let Epineza and Bosa walk, which I think they're going to end up doing because Bosa's 30, Epineza's 27, Russo's 25, and you paid him. Hocht is 28. I think Hocht's a good backup defensive end, but I don't view him as a starter. And Landon Jackson's only 22. He's only going to develop and get better. Ed Oliver's under contract next year, $24 million. But you have T.J. Sanders, you have Dwayne Carter from Duke coming back from a season-ending injury. Oh, and Deion Walker has looked excellent. He's looked better than Sanders. We both had a first-round grade on Deion Walker, Joey, and, he's actually starting over TJ Sanders, which doesn't surprise me because I had Sanders graded as a backup. I had Walker graded as a starter, even though Sanders wowed people with his athletic traits the Senior Bowl. I've always liked Walker more. The fact that Walker's starting over Sanders as well. Walker's only 21. So that's another thing you got to look at. So I think the Bills are okay at defensive tackle. Even though losing to Quan Jones and Ogunjobi is going to... I think the Bills are okay at defensive tackle. The right outside linebacker, Matt Milano. Shaq Thompson is also a UFA. Dorian Williams has not been good in relief of Milano and Bernard. He got injured in the Monday night game. Shaq Thompson had to come in. Bale Inspector, who was on the Bills last year as a backup. They don't have a market value for Matt Milano. I'm a little bit surprised by that. You would think a linebacker as good as Milano would have market value, but I think his injury probably makes it tough to project this contract at this juncture, Joey. Milano's injury, because the thing with the Bills is them and Tampa Bay were the two healthiest offensive lines in 2024, and the Bills were the healthiest offensive line in 2023. So that durability inflates the market value of McGovern and Edwards. That's the thing, Joey. Because the Bills had no injuries in the offensive line in 2024 and 2023, that inflates the market value of the offensive linemen on the Bills because of their amazing durability. That's the other part of it that we're not looking at. But yeah, Terrell Bernard's going to go from $2.5 million to $5.4 million linebacker. White's the UFA. Ron Johnson's back at nickel corner. Ben Ferguson will be on a rookie deal. Your first-round corner. He'll be replacing White next year. I'll look at the market value for Tre'Davious White because I honestly think the Bills should bring him back if he continues to play well. But there's no market value for him, which is interesting. So basically what SpotTrack is telling me is that Connor McGovern at $16.5 million at age 28 and David Edwards $20.3 million at age 27 are worth more than Bosa. They're worth more than Epineza. They're rather have Tre'Davious White for $5 or $6 million over David Edwards for $20 million any day of the week. Okay, because cornerback's a premium position, and if I can get White for $5 or $6 million, Bills are only paying $0.8 million. And honestly, that's a severe underpay. You're paying Tre'Davious White under $3 million. That you also have Dorian Strong, the Virginia Tech corner, Ohio State corner. So you're going to have three corners on rookie deals in Hairston, Hancock, and Strong, and you have Benford and corner for the Bills next year. Safety, DeMar Hamlin, Jordan Poyer is on the Poyer's a UFA. Sam Franklin's a UFA. Your three backup safeties are UFAs. Taylor Rapp has regressed this year. I didn't like Taylor Rapp coming out of Washington, but when he got a second chance with the Bills, he rebounded. And I'm looking at Taylor Rapp's contract right now for 2026. Taylor Rapp has in cap space. So if you think there's a better safety in the draft or a better thing could be useful. But I want to see what the Bills cap space is first before we get to right now, right guard is left guard's the only major left guard and maybe right outside linebacker or if Milano leaves. Those are really the only major drafts. I could be wrong on that, Joey, but I'm pretty certain those are the only two major needs for right. The Bills are $3.3 million over the cap. So they are somebody to get under the cap for 2030 salary cap. All right, 2026, and they would save $9.6 million cap space.
Knox is making that? Man.
They can not well, the Bills can the Bills extended Dawson Knox. They can't cut him now because they would lose cap money. They would lose $6 million if they cut him this year. They would save $9 million because right now Dawson Knox is $17 million, but he has a dead cap of $7.4 million in 2026 versus a $21 million this year.
Once again, why?
In 2019, and then they drafted Kincaid in the first round. If they were going to draft Kincaid, why did they extend? They probably did it as an insurance policy in case Kincaid didn't fall to them. Didn't be in thought process because he traded down in that draft with the Jaguars, if you remember. So you could save $9.6 million if you cut him. You could save $6 million if you cut Curtis Samuel. Curtis Samuel, in his defense, he's played better than Dawson Knox. He's been more consistent. And I'm open to keeping him if he restructures. Whereas with Knox, you're going to have to pay Kincaid pretty soon. So you're probably going to have to either trade or cut Knox. I'm open to keeping Samuel if he restructures, though. Right?
The thing with Samuel is
Curtis Samuel's only making $9 million.
It's not that he's a bad player. It's that he's past his prime.
Yes,
that's what you got to look at.
Dawson Knox is making $17 million for next season after making $15 million this year, and Curtis Samuel's making $9.725 next year. And if you cut him, you save $6.2 million. But structure and he restructures like $3 or $4 million. I'm open to keeping Curtis Samuel as a role player. If he restructures, I'm open to keeping him. If he doesn't, I got to cut him. That's the thing. That's the thing with Samuel. The Bills can cut Teron Johnson to save cap space. They can cut Taylor Rapp, but I think right now Dawson Knox and Rapp are going to be the guys they cut to save cap space. They might cut Samuel, but only if he refuses to restructure. And I think they'll keep. Then we'll get to the Dolphins-Browns. Waited patiently.
I'm sorry, the person you were trying to...
All right. I'll wait. I'll give Joey a few minutes. I don't know if his phone died or if he disconnected. All right, so yeah. Browns Dolphins in a second here. Yeah, we're still here. The audio device stopped unexpectedly. I don't know why. I don't know why that's happened. I'll give Joey a few more seconds. But yeah, Dolphins Browns is interesting.
I'm sorry, the person you were trying to...
All right. All right. We pretty much covered everything Bills related, but basically,
Okay. Yeah,
Ba-
it disconnected me.
yeah,
for some
basically,
reason.
basically, Curtis Samuel is, if he restructures, you keep him. You buy out Taylor Rapp, you buy out Dawson Knox. If you want to buy out Curtis Samuel too, that'll give you about 15 million to spend on free agents and the draft. If you buy those three players out, Dawson Knox, Curtis Samuel, and but that's the thing. I mean, there are guys like Tre'Davious White who you're paying 2.8 million. I would rather have White at 5 or 6 million than pay 20 million to David Edwards. I would rather have Bosa at 7.5 million versus Edwards at 20.3 million. 20.3 million is just too much for David Edwards. I get that these offensive linemen on Buffalo have been the most durable in the league, but that doesn't mean you inflate their value and overpay out the ass to get them in free agency, because they're not going to be as good without Allen at quarterback. They're just not. That's the reality. They could still be good somewhere else, but they're not going to be as good as they are without Allen. And like you said, as you get to 27, 28, that's when the toll from all the wear and tear on your body begins to take effect. All right, but we are on Dolphins Browns now. So, yeah, I mean, Austin Jackson has missed the first 6 weeks. I don't think the Dolphins can beat the Browns without Austin Jackson. The public seems to agree with that. And, the Dolphins, I picked them to upset the Chargers because the Chargers had a horrible offensive line situation with Joe Alt out last week, with Trey Pipkins out last week. That's why I took the Dolphins in the upset. I think it's a lot harder to win on the road. And I've heard the weather is going to be a bitch in Cleveland tomorrow. They're saying it's going to be raining. We're going to have like wind gusts and stuff.
Oh, that is a thing of, it's going to be a thing of beauty for the running backs. If either Cleveland was as inaccurate as Gabriel has been, or Tua with the all over the place season, if they decide to throw the ball out, we're talking 40, 50 mile an hour winds, rain, dust, just bad weather for anything except running game. And let's face it, the Dolphins and Browns offense don't have much going for them. This is going to be a shit show. But what they do have going for them, they got two great young running backs. If you ain't going to make a parlay on, hey, are both running backs going to give 100 yards? This is the game, because shit's going to hit the fan.
Yeah, the over-under in this game is 37.5, and most people are betting the over. I am going to go with the... Most... I've got the under as well, Joey. I've got the under as well. I'm going Browns 17, Dolphins 16. Browns win, Dolphins cover the spread. But I like the Browns 17-16 over the Dolphins in this one. Very ugly, low-scoring game.
And the Browns, once again, have not had a game over 20 points in the regular season since last December. The last time they had a game 20 points or more overall, Shedeur Sanders was quarterback. Week 1 against Carolina for the preseason.
Yeah. And I think Shedeur will start, but it's probably going to be in week 9, if I had to guess, because I think if Gabriel is a shitty game, they'll use the weather as an excuse to give him one more week as the starter, and then he'll unravel against the Patriots in week 8, and then he'll get his first start, have their bye week before they play the Jets in week 10.
I've been holding on to this a little bit. But from everything I've been hearing, Andrew Berry and Jimmy Haslam are fully backing. They were the two that were fully backing the Shaquille Sanders pick. Kevin Stefanski did not want it, from what I've been hearing. He wanted Dylan Gabriel. They gave him Gabriel, but they made sure they traded up to get Sanders because there were teams that were going to trade up to get him. And he had to tell a couple teams no. As that's well documented, the Steelers and Ravens.
Yep.
He had to tell those two teams no, but there were other teams that were going to get him. They had to trade up to get him. And that was a Haslam-Berry decision. Right now, the big reason Stefanski's on the hot seat is because he's too good stubborn to realize he was wrong and his simplified high school offense ain't working. And that's why they ended very forced the trade of Joe Flacco, because he and Haslam want to go, and they knew if Gabriel failed, Stefanski was going to get back to Flacco.
Yep.
So this is the way that they can. Right now, Kevin Stefanski's all done. He is a lame-duck coach, whether anybody likes it or not. He came into the season with the favor of Deep Desta and Haslam, where Barry was on the down low. Since the draft, Barry has gained the favor of Haslam and Deep Desta, and Stefanski's stubborn nature has completely alienated him from the rest of the franchise. Even his own coaches. I believe that when Stefanski is fired, whether it's this season or not, remember, Chris, when in the offseason, I want you to think about this. Everybody was talking about how Tommy Reese is going to go to another team as the offensive coordinator. Mr. Haslam and Andrew Berry made sure Tommy Reese stayed right there. Not Kevin Stefanski, the two front office guys. When Stefanski's gone, look at who's going to be your next head coach of the Cleveland Browns. He's right up there at the offensive coordinator position, sitting there biding his time. Just food for thought. Food for thought.
I don't think they'll promote Reese to offensive coordinator or head coach.
No. They definitely would, because look at the contract. They gave him a high-priced offensive coordinator contract after 1 year in the NFL as tight ends coach. They keep him in that franchise. Why? And if you put the breadcrumbs in over 2 years, if you just connect the breadcrumbs, connect the tea leaves, they wanted Tommy Reese in this franchise for a reason. And they've been slowly pushing out Kevin Stefanski.
I don't think they'll do an internal promotion. I think they'll hire somebody else.
I think they'll do an internal, but I think some of the assistants are going to go bye-bye. He is definitely gone. He has been a fucking failure on monumental levels. And that sucks because he was one of the best special teams coaches in the league when he was hired.
Yeah. Well, Bubba Ventrone's the assistant head coach. So if Stefanski gets fired, Ventrone becomes interim head coach.
Well, that's during the season. I'm not sure they fire him during the season.
Yeah.
That's the big thing. I don't think they fire him during the season, but after the season,
I think Reese gets promoted to assistant head coach, but they hire somebody else. That because Reese is kind of young to throw into head coach. I think Reese gets promoted to assistant head coach like Kafka did with the Giants, but he doesn't get thrown into the head coaching role right away.
I could see that. I'm just thinking what Jimmy has him good for. He sees the trends. What's the trends? Young offensive minds that have a lot of cachet Well, Nick Saban came out and said Tommy Reese is the next big thing. Wow. Who the hell is he going to believe in Nick Saban? I mean, Nick Saban's Nick Saban. I mean, you're not going to... I was going to say, Nick Saban, you're a liar.
What if the Browns hired Nick Saban as their head coach, but they secretly groomed Tommy Reese behind him while Saban coached?
They would have been a clear and a half, and I would say, that would be a hell of a thing to do. Because that would be the coup. That might be the coup of the decade. If that, I don't think it happens, but if it did, it'd be like, hell, that'd be the coup of the decade. How do you even not say that is a magnificent freaking thought process?
Because you give Reese enough time to develop into a head coach while he's the assistant head coach to Nick Saban, and he's got great rapport with Saban. So from a business standpoint, it does make a lot of sense. But I don't know if Saban wants to get back into coaching.
But the same thing you got going on there is like, what do you see, that completely when it comes to training camp? Two people that were around Shedeur Sanders at all time, Tommy Reese and Joe Flacco. Who is Andrew Berry and Jason's chosen quarterback? Shedeur Sanders. Just another group of teams that could push down there. The contract and making sure he stays in Cleveland and making sure he has a rapport with Shedeur Sanders. I mean, Shedeur Sanders being the choice of Heisman and Berry. I mean, if you're connecting teams, they got a lot of teams there. But if they can get Nick Saban and give Tommy Reese another year or two, you're not going to get an argument for me as a Browns fan. Hell, as an F, because Nick Saban's Nick Saban.
Yeah.
It's like Nick Saban's Nick Saban.
I don't see Nick Saban getting back into coaching unless he gets an NFL gig.
I agree. Because he got out of coaching because of the NIL.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if he gets an NFL gig, Jimmy Haslam says, fuck it, we want Reese as head coach when we don't think he's ready. Hey, Nick, making $20 million a year for 2 years to be head coach. I could see it.
That's why I'm thinking that's what they will go with. They'll go with like a placeholder who has great rapport with Tommy Reese so that Reese is ready to be head coach when the new stadium opens in 2029.
That would be a hell of a scenario, Chris. I did not think of it, but man, you might have hit it on the head right there.
Because you get Saban for 2 or 3 years, and then you turn things over to Reese when the new stadium in Brook Park opens.
And one of the things they said, hey, young guys, they don't have a winning culture. Nick Saban brings a winning culture. I'm so sorry. Nick Saban is a winning culture when he steps into the locker. So, yeah, let's face it. Could you imagine Shedeur Sanders in the pistol? I mean, that would be freaking magic.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just my thought process of the pistol offense. So I may prefer a pistol offense than just the West Coast.
Yeah, and 4 people picked the Browns. Me, Joey, Tony, Mario, and Tracy. Everyone else took the Dolphins to beat the Browns. But here's the thing. The Browns have 2 really good corners, Denzel Ward and Tyson Campbell. They don't have to worry about Tyreek Hill. They just have to shut down Waddle, and they got the personnel to do it.
And also in that environment, man, what running back would you rather have? man. I bet there's a guy who's used to a higher level.
If Shadur comes in off the bench and runs for the game-winning touchdown in the rain, he's going to look like Billy Madison on the slip and slide. He's going to look like Billy Madison on the slip and slide or Justin Fields in the rain against San Francisco. And he's going to celebrate. It's going to be really...
And you know one of the big reasons why Shadur Sanders been so calm? Because Tom Brady's been in his ear saying, wait your turn, be calm. Because those two have a close personal relationship.
Yep.
You know, Tom's telling him, be calm. So he's calm, and he gets in there in the rain, and he does what you say. He ain't giving that job up.
Yeah.
He's not giving it up. It is his job, and he will be the starting quarterback for Cleveland next year.
Yep. And we're going to have Drake May on the cover next week for Week 8 when the Browns play the Patriots. We could have put Lamar on the cover, but Lamar has been on the cover too many times last year. And the Ravens, they haven't won enough games to earn a cover vote. They haven't. If we're gonna deny Myles Garrett a cover and put Justin Herbert on when they tied, we have to apply the same rules to Lamar Jackson, Joey, because the Ravens haven't won enough games.
I agree. And I also think it's a good decision because I think the Browns and Patriots could be a hell of a game.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, you know.
Myles Garrett has to get out of this cold streak he's been in because Broderick Jones was the player of the game for Week 6 for our Browns-Steelers recap. In Garrett's defense, he's battled 3 left tackles that have won player of the game this season. Taylor Decker in Week... Taylor... The hip injury, too, but he battled Taylor Decker, who won player of the game in Week 3. He battled Darisaw, won player of the game in Week 3 as well against the Bengals. And he battled Broderick Jones, who won his first player of the game in Week 6. And Will Campbell won player of the game in Week 4 when the Patriots beat the Panthers. So he's battled a lot of good left tackles this year. So it's the hip injury along with the level of competition. And you could argue there's a cold streak, but it's the level of competition plus the hip injury plus the fact that Garrett's on a cold streak. This is the best time for Garrett to snap the cold streak.
Mason Graham went out injured last week. He is still questionable. I think he is questionable as of this morning for the game. So, I mean, so that hurts as well. But, you know, the Browns defensive line is getting beat up a little bit.
Yeah.
But overall, it's like you look at the weather and you say, hey, guess what? Who's going to run the ball best? I stick to the Ohio guy, Quinshon Judkins, because he knows Ohio weather. Guess what? That's gone. Quinshon Judkins, and if you're looking at an over-under on rushing yards, I say go over 200. Because I think those guys are going to run.
Yeah, definitely. Next game is Raiders-Chiefs. Raiders-Chiefs. Bowers is questionable for this game. Probably going to be out again. The Chiefs get Rashee Rice back. I'm going to go 31-13 Raiders. I was going to go 56-10 Chiefs, but here's the thing. The over-under is 45.5, and a lot of people are betting the over in this game, expecting Kansas City to blow out the Raiders. So, and I expect a blowout as well, but not to the extreme to where it's 56-10. I think we're probably to get something like 31-13. Everybody took the Chiefs except William. He's taking the Raiders in an upset, even though Bowers might be out this week. But yeah, it's going to be an ugly game. There's only one lock on the site this week, which is tied for the fewest locks we've had in our history.
Bowers being out is what got me to say, you know what? Raiders ain't got a shot. Because Bowers is just so huge in their game plan and how they do things offensively.
Okay, Eagles Vikings. It's in Minnesota. This is my upset. The Eagles have lost 2 in a row. I think the Vikings are healthier this week. I like the Vikings 24-20. Wes, William, and Tracy all took the Vikings as well. So Wes also has the Vikings winning in the upset. Carson Wentz revenge game incoming. And the Eagles' offense has just been very sloppy the last 2 weeks.
I've managed the Vikings all 22 a couple times this year, and I can say they're not a good team. They're just not. It's like the Browns should have beat them by 25. But Dan Gabriel, in his infinite wisdom, missed David Njoku twice on over-the-middle touchdowns where nobody was even close to him. Missed Isaiah Bond twice on over-the-middle touchdowns where nobody was even close to him.
And Denzel Ward, that was his one bad game of the year. He's been good in 4 or 5 games, but his worst game of the year was against the Vikings, where he got burned by both Addison and Jefferson.
Well, we're not going to say the Vikings don't have great receivers because
They do.
Receiving goes in the sport. Now, if you're looking at a defense, just look over the middle. With that game, David Njoku and David Bell, not David Bell, I think about they should have had 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. Dan Gabriel is so bad.
Carson Wentz is going to implode eventually, but I think he wins this week because this is a revenge game. He was drafted by the Eagles. This is a revenge game for Wentz, and then he implodes. The implosion happens in week 8. Doesn't happen yet.
He imploded against the Browns. The only problem was the Browns couldn't score any and gave him extra opportunities. It was...
Because after the Vikings play the Eagles, they get at Chargers Thursday night, at Lions, versus Ravens, and then they host the Bears. I think they beat the Bears in week 11, but I think they go on a 3-game losing streak after they win this week. And this is their most winnable game in the next month. This is their most winnable game within the next month. So I
can agree with it, but at the same time, I can look because I have watched all 22s, and the Viking defense, they should have lost to the Browns by 30. They should have lost the week before.
They did lose the week before to Pittsburgh.
How much?
They only lost by a touchdown to Pittsburgh.
They should have lost by 30.
Actually, they lost by a field goal to Pittsburgh.
They should have lost by 30. I watched that all 22. They should have lost by 30. The middle of that defense is probably the worst middle of the defense in the NFL.
And ever since Andrew Van Ginkel got injured in week 2, Dallas Turner has taken over it. I think Van Ginkel got injured in week 1, but Dallas Turner has taken over that spot where Andrew Van Ginkel starts at. You drafted him in the first round. I don't think Dallas Turner has a single sack this year. I don't think Dallas Turner is a single sack.
No. And that's what I was pissed off about in the Vikings game. What the Browns was...
He has 1 sack.
One, the Browns didn't spread the field, from the slip. And 2, they didn't take advantage of the open guys over the middle, because if they would have spread out the receivers properly, taking advantage of the others over the middle, that Njoku and Bond, they would have blown out the Vikings by 30 to 40 points. The Vikings are that bad defensively over the middle. You cannot.
Their cornerback situation's abysmal. They have Isaiah Rodgers and Okudah starting next to their number 1 corner, Byron Murphy. But those are their number 2 and number 3 guys. It's not a great situation. I think the Vikings win this game, but they implode after this game. I think
The Vikings defensive backs are horrific, and I will put the outside linebackers that cover the tight ends in that too. They are horrific. They're the worst in the NFL. They're like the worst
Well, Van Ginkel's their best coverage linebacker. He's injured, and they have Jonathan Greenard and Dallas Turner starting.
It might work out either way because you're looking at having a team which you say has the worst wide receiver coordinator burning your ass. You know that Vikings.
The Eagles' offense is kind of on a cold streak, though. To be fair, the Eagles' offense is kind of on a cold streak. I mean, they lost to the Broncos. They lost to the Giants, who I don't think are a very good team, but they lost to both of those teams.
Well, here's the difference. Dan Gabriel missed deep throws. Because he didn't look at that man. He checked it down.
And Wentz hit on a few deep throws against the Browns.
Yeah, it's like Jalen Hurts is not going to miss those deep throws. They can open it in the middle. Jalen Hurts going to let it loose. You know, Jalen Hurts is not 5'10", freaking lefty, you know, all or nothing. You know,
I don't think Hurts is bad, but I think the guy replacing Kellen Moore at offensive coordinator for the Eagles isn't very good.
No, but Dylan Moore is not going to miss an open receiver in the middle. I think we can unanimously agree on that. They see a wide open guy going over the middle.
Kevin Patullo has been a massive over Kellen Moore at offensive. Patullo has been a big downgrade. Kevin Patullo, he's been a massive downgrade over Kellen Moore at offensive coordinator for the Eagles this year.
Yeah, I can see why.
I think the Vikings win this one, but the implosion is going to begin. The implosion for the Vikings is inevitable, but I think it's a week later. That's the only difference. They might beat the Eagles at home.
They might, but it's like after watching the All-22 and seeing what the Vikings can do, the Vikings defense and the Vikings offense, to be quite honest with you, I'm not.
Quinion Mitchell's injured, and Cooper DeJean was very sloppy against the Giants and Broncos the last 2 weeks. So that's why there's hope for the Vikings. If those guys turn it around, maybe the Eagles win, but I'm not confident in either team's secondary. And I just think Wentz wants it a little bit more than Hurts.
I just think the Vikings secondary is worse than football. I mean,
cornerbacks, yes. Safeties, no. I don't think Metellus is very good, but I still think Harrison Smith's a decent free safety. But I don't think.
Let's be honest. If Isaiah Bond is hit on all of the passes that he could have been hit on, he's one of the leading receivers in the NFL.
Yeah.
On the Vikings. That should just tell you everything you need to know. Undrafted rookie, if the quarterback would have hit him in the Vikings game, would have been one of the top 5 receivers in the NFL. How the hell do you if that well, there's just no way.
Interesting. The Eagles-Vikings game is Bill Vinovich. Bill Vinovich is the referee. Yeah, during the Steeler game last week, there was roasting Ron Torbert like the entire time. That was the entire thing when we were at the Steelers-Browns game last week. We were roasting Ron Torbert.
They didn't have to roast Ron Torbert because the Browns were roasting him for him. The Browns were giving him reasons. Yeah, Cam Robinson gave the hat trick. I mean, the holding. He had a false start, and somehow he lined up as a waiver. But it wasn't supposed to. How the hell did you do that? God, like, you didn't have to on Torbo. The Bronx didn't get on 40. I mean, he made the Browns made it too easy. The Browns made Robinson on his own instead of Ron Dwarf.
Game with Bill Vinovich, Doug Peterson was the head coach and Carson Wentz was the starting quarterback. That was the last time the Eagles won a game under Bill Vinovich. So Vinovich is like the worst. Vinovich, people say Ron Torbert's the Bengals kryptonite. Bill Vinovich might be the Eagles kryptonite.
I was going to say, it's like, maybe these folks, and now it was on Torbert's the Browns are so bad. It made me really easy to road Bill Vinovich. That's real easy.
Yeah, and before that, Bill Vinovich called Patriots Eagles in 2019-2020. The Eagles lost that game, and then they beat the Rams the year the Rams went to the Super Bowl. That was the last time. I think Nick Foles was the QB in that game in 2018-2019. I think Foles, they were trying to repeat. So, yeah. Bill Vinovich might be the Eagles kryptonite. So that I was kind of curious about. Panthers and Jets. I was initially going to pick the Jets to win this game because this is a game I had the Jets winning in the preseason. Why did I switch to Carolina? It's very simple. Garrett Wilson's out for the Jets. I don't think the Jets can beat Carolina without Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson's just, his impact is that big.
I picked Carolina.
I thought you picked the Jets. Your text said you picked the Jets.
Okay, I want to switch.
If you want to switch it to Carolina, I'll switch it to Carolina now because, yes, that's a big loss. You know, not having Garrett Wilson's a big loss. If Garrett Wilson was in the lineup, I would have picked Garrett Wilson was in the lineup, I would have picked the Jets. He's not. So I ended up picking the Panthers as a result.
It's like Donald has been surprisingly one of the best running backs in the NFL this year. I don't know how, I don't know why, but he has been on fire. And what do the Jets have a problem with? Stopping the run. So guess what? Donald's going to be there, and if he plays like he has been playing, I got no reason not to pick Carolina.
Yeah, Dowdle's been amazing. The offensive line for Carolina has been great. And it's not just the fact that Garrett Wilson's out of this game. That's the biggest reason I switched to the Panthers, but it's the main reason, but it's not the secondary reason. The secondary reason I switched to the Jets is there is already friction in that locker room because when Tyrod Taylor came in for Justin Fields in week 4 against the Bills, the Jets actually played respectable and clicked as an offense. So there's already friction over whether Fields is the guy. There are some people within the Jets locker room that think Tyrod's the guy and Fields is not the guy. So there's already that going for the Jets. And
why the Jets and Browns always end up in synchronization with their dysfunction? Okay, it's like half the basketball team wants to go Sanders, half the Jets team wants Tyrod Taylor. Why is there so much dysfunction, and why do they always line up between the Jets and the Browns? I'm just going to ask whether it is we can look back and compare. It's always the Jets and the Browns with the same damn issues all the time, and they seem to happen simultaneously all the time. Sorry, that's my rant.
no, it's cool. I'm just trying to see if there's other sports ventures. I'm looking for what Woody Johnson. I'm not looking up. I'm looking at what other sports teams Woody Johnson owns besides the Jets. He does not own any besides the Jets. He did try to buy Chelsea in 2022, but some bidders in Saudi Arabia outbid him for the position, and by March 25th, 2022, it was reported that he was no longer in contention to buy Chelsea, the English Premier League team. It's ironic because Stan Kroenke owns Arsenal. So if Woody Johnson owned Chelsea, he would run Chelsea into the ground because Chelsea's like Arsenal's biggest rival in the Premier League.
Chelsea would end up getting run by his teenage sons the same way the Jets do. We'll see how that works.
And Woody Johnson would grade players off of FIFA ratings because he uses Madden ratings with the Jets, so he used FIFA ratings with. Yeah, exactly. I'm not gonna roast this situation anymore. It's already sort of roasted itself.
Yeah, we can roast the Browns and the Jets and their similarities and so on and so forth all day. But, we don't have that long.
Yeah, it's like, plus Dave Tepper and Woody Johnson are the owners of these two teams. Dave Tepper actually got Charlotte FC the All-Star game, the MLS All-Star game for 2026, and they've made the playoffs 2 years in a row. And now, and if they win, both Charlotte FC will be in the playoffs, and the Panthers will have a winning record. So, the Panthers will. I think it's the GM. I think it's the GM. The Panthers have a former Panthers GM is Dan Morgan. I think Dan Morgan's done a great job, and I think Luke Kuechly is on the Panthers in an organization role as like a scout or something. So
Luke has been in a front office role for the Panthers for a few years. I actually thought he was going to get promoted to GM 2 years ago.
Yeah, but they went with Dan Morgan, another former Panther, instead.
Yeah, and those two work well together because obviously they're former teammates.
Yep.
So when Dave Morgan goes, I have full confidence that he's going to take over.
Yeah, so Luke Kuechly and Dan Morgan are the two guys. They're the brains behind the operation. I'm not gonna roast Dave Tepper, but I'm not gonna give him any credit for this rebuild either. It's been Dan Morgan, it's been Dave Canales, and it's been Luke Kuechly. Those three are the brains behind this rebuild, and it is what it is.
I will roast him for the life of me because he is a fucking piece of shit. But at the same time, he made the right hire, so piece of shit as he may be, he got the right guys in charge.
Interesting. Kuechly resigned from his scouting position in 2021, and then he became a radio broadcaster, and then he went to CBS for college football in 2024. That's what this says for Luke Kuechly.
I thought he resigned and then he got back with the Carolina.
I thought he got back with Carolina too. I thought he did too, but that's interesting though. I thought he did too, but his profile says he's not with the team. But I'm not going to put a lot of stock into that. The two people that were brave enough to pick the Jets were William and Kerm. So Kerm is giving us I'm calling this a mercy game. He's giving us mercy. He's giving us a fighting chance to catch him in the standings because he's 3 games up on Wes and Tony He's 4 games up on Wes and Tony. 3 games up on Wes and Tony Mario now. And then everybody else is I'm 4 games behind Kerm. So Kerm's giving us a mercy game here by picking the Jets.
I know where I stand in this league as well as I know where I stand in fantasy football. I always start fantasy.
No, because even though Kerm has a massive lead over Wes, you're only like 2 or 3 games back of Tony Mario for second. You're only like 4 or 5 games back. You could still catch Tony Mario for second, but Kerm has like a 7 or 6 game lead over you now.
One
what the hell did I do to deserve a lead?
You're in the top 25, Joey. You're in the top 25 of the standings. I think you're in the top 25 for the first time in 2 years. The last time you were in the top 25, Lisa had the lead in Draft Utopia. It was week 7. So for the first time in 2 years, you are in the top 25 of the national polls. Kerm's third. Wes and Tony Mario are both in the top 10. Wes is 8th. Tony Mario was 10th last week. I'm 13th. So yeah. I don't know what's going on with Joey's phone, but yeah. We're still on TalkShoe. We're still on Restream. Yeah. And then we're gonna get through Patriots Titans. Okay, so we're on Patriots Titans now.
Yeah, that was strange.
I don't know why the phone's been disconnecting, but Patriots.
I don't know. It just randomly disconnected.
Yep.
It's like, okay.
Patriots Titans. It's in Tennessee. Mike Vrabel. He's coming back to Tennessee. The Titans are going to roll with Mike McCoy as their head coach, interim head coach. Now that they fired Brian Callahan. So I've got the Patriots winning by double digits, 27-17, and this is the only lock on the site this week. Patriots are the only lock on the site this week. So yeah. If you're in survivor pools, I don't know what to tell you guys because
Callahan was fired is like Bill Callahan said, "Fuck this, I resign." So now you lose your offensive line coach, your run game coordinator, and your head coach. And it's like, well, where do we go from here? It's like I think they really should have thought that through because they didn't just lose their head coach; they lost half their offensive strategy guy. I mean, that was probably not thought through very well.
Okay, so the Titans named Mike McCoy the interim head coach. He was the senior offensive assistant. He was a senior offensive assistant prior to this season.
Nothing against Mike McCoy, okay? Nothing against Mike McCoy.
He was the Jaguars QB's coach for 3 years.
Titans could have been smarter about this because they should have known if they fired their head coach, they were going to lose their offensive line coach and run game coordinator. That is 2/3 of their offense.
And I don't think they promoted the right guy. I don't think they promoted the right guy to interim head coach if they were going to do this. I'm looking at the Titans coaching staff. I think Mike McCoy is the second best guy on this offense outside of Tyke Tolbert and Callahan, who you fired. So if you take the Callahans and you rank them at 1 and 2, you could argue Tolbert is third among their offensive staff and Mike McCoy is fourth.
Yeah, the thing with Mike McCoy is that he does have previous head coaching experience.
That's probably why he got the job.
That's probably what they were thinking.
But the Titans linebackers coach is former Falcons linebackers coach Frank Bush. That's who I would have gone with as the interim head coach because he was the assistant head coach with the Jets. I would have gone with Frank Bush as interim head coach. Stupid as that sounds, that's the decision I would have made if I were the Titans.
It is an interesting situation because you did have a few promising candidates. It's like I don't think they took the best candidate because when you fire somebody mid-season, the thing you want to see is the guy that has the most potential on your staff to be a head coach.
And I think that's Frank Bush. I don't think that's Mike McCoy given his age. It'd be like the Buccaneers firing Vance Joseph and making Tom Moore their interim head coach, which wouldn't be a bad move because Tom Moore's a heck of a lot better of an offensive mind than Mike McCoy. He might be a better offensive mind than Mike McCoy, but at this point, with his age, it's just not smart, and that's basically what you're doing with Mike McCoy.
He's a great coach. I mean, he's one of my favorites, but he's like 70 years old now.
Exactly.
It's like, why are you gonna promote him? Might as well promote Baker Mayfield to player coach at that point because.
I think they should have gone with Frank Bush because Frank Bush has been an assistant head coach for 3 different teams: the Dolphins, the Jets, and the Cardinals.
Yeah,
so
that would be a better choice. Yes, agreed.
That's why I said that's probably who they should have gone with as their interim head coach, and they could have promoted McCoy to offensive coordinator. I think that would have been the better strategy, in my opinion. But hey, that's just I don't think the Titans got this right, and they're going with Mike McCoy as a placeholder because of his experience at head coach. I don't think he was the best candidate to promote on the team. And when you're not the best candidate to promote to the position on the team, I think that says more about how disastrous the Titans have been since Mike Vrabel got fired, John Robinson got fired. They've gotten a lot worse. Their ownership hasn't been making good decisions, and they've just as a team.
And right now, how bad does Jimmy Haslam look that he had Mike Vrabel on his roster and didn't fire Kevin Stefanski last year and hire Mike Vrabel? Because Mike Vrabel is doing amazing things. And
I'm happy he did that.
Yeah, you're extremely excited that they didn't fire Kevin Stefanski because Mike Vrabel was the big dog on campus.
Him and Ben Johnson were like literally the 2 best coaching hires. Those were literally the 2 best candidates.
Advisor and ended up offensive coordinator plus advisor to the general manager, and then ended up as the Patriots head coach. I mean, Mike Vrabel, dude, within a year, Mike Vrabel became former coach of the year to, damn, he might be able to do some things that we didn't think he could do. And we're going to hire him as the head coach because he and Elliot Wolf work quite well together.
Yeah, so that's the thing.
The same way. It's like, so it's like, you must be quite happy right now.
Yeah. It's looking like it's going to be Ravens over Eagles for this year's Super Bowl. Next year, I'd say Bills over Buccaneers. And then 62, I would say Chargers over Packers. 63, I think, is going to be the Commanders' year. They're going to be the next NFC team to win it all. But who will their opponent be? It'll be Burrow if he doesn't retire. It could be Mahomes. The third option is the Patriots because the way the Patriots are building this thing right now with Drake May and Will Campbell, they're on the exact trajectory they were on in the 90s when they had Bill Parcells and Bledsoe. I'm not going to sit here and say they're going to win multiple Super Bowls like they did with Belichick and Brady. That's not realistic. But at the same token, I feel like they're on the same trajectory that the Patriots were on in the 90s when they made Super Bowl 31 with Drew Bledsoe. I feel like they're on that exact trajectory with Drake May at the moment, to where if they keep getting it right in the draft, they could make a Super Bowl by the time we reach Super Bowl 63. I don't think they'd win, but I think they could get there. But if they play someone else besides Washington, who knows? It's too far out to project that far out. It's too early to project that far out. But I'm saying right now, with what Vrabel's doing, with what McDaniels is doing, if they stick around, they pay Gonzalez, they pay May, they pay Will Campbell after their rookie deals, they're going to have a really good window to do something. And their trajectory is going to be very high.
I've got a question for you.
So you don't think the Patriots are on the same trajectory as the Patriots in the 90s when they had Parcells and Bledsoe?
Not yet. I think they could be, but I actually got a question for you.
What's up?
May actually fit into that. The Hawaii has a kicker from Japan.
Yep.
That is considered the best in the country, and he has a freaking foot on him. Where do you see him going? Because if the Patriots draft him,
we got Andres Borregales. He won player of the game against the Bills in week 5. Andres Borregales, the Miami, Florida kicker. We got him in last year's draft.
No, this is this year.
The Patriots drafted a kicker. Patriots drafted a kicker in 2025 in the 6th round, Andres Borregales. He was my top kicker in the 2025 draft, and the Patriots got him. And he went 3 for 3 against the Bills. One player of the game in week 5.
What do you think about the Japanese kicker that plays for Hawaii, though? I mean, I heard about him this morning, and I watched him film, and like, damn, that ball can kick.
That's interesting. He's not even listed in Phil Steele's top 20. They have a top 20 kicker, top 28 kickers. They have 28 kickers. Oh, I only put 5 kickers in my rankings each year. They don't even have him in the top 28.
They're airing Hawaii games in Japan just to watch him kick.
Yeah.
He is that good. So, I mean...
Kansei Matsuzawa. That's Kansei Matsuzawa. He was a junior last year. He is 1,000. He has 1,000%. He's 19 for 19 on field goals, 19 for 19 on extra points so far this season. And
yeah,
he's
I called him the Japanese toe or something like that. It's just.
But Matsuzawa was not even mentioned in the rankings. It's surprising, but yeah.
Yeah, because that's why I hadn't seen him anywhere else. That's why I was asking you. Is like, have you heard anything?
No, I haven't heard anything about him. But yeah, if those numbers continue to remain, we work on our kicker rankings. Probably, I'm gonna have to put him in the kicker rankings when we get to them. But yeah,
Yeah, because anybody who can, even if a kicker that can cause, college football games to go over to another country, man, that's got to be some star power right there.
Yeah, Maryland leads Ohio State in soccer 3-0. I think I'm ready to put the game on multi-view for a football because it's like with Xfinity, I'm ready to put the games on multi-view. Okay, the Giants play the Broncos. I took the Broncos simply because I think that Broncos have a really good defense, and I think the Giants are going to have problems going on the road into Denver and winning this game. I do have the Giants covering the spread.
I took the Giants
you did.
Because I figure Scatterboo and Jackson Dart were going to be huffing paint together. So they were going to be doing a lot of things that were detrimental to their health, but were going to help the Giants win.
So basically, Jackson Dart and Cam Scatterboo, if we ever had NFL players go in this era go on Jackass, those would be the two guys that would be on the show, basically. If
Scatterboo is out of crayons, we might need to get him some for a snack.
The Broncos are favored by 7 on the spread. I have the Broncos winning by a point, 20-19. So take the Giants at +7. This game, 3 people picked the Giants. You, Tracy, and William. Everyone else took the Broncos, but I think the Giants cover. I don't think the Giants win, but I think they cover. -7's a lot for Denver because this game's a lot more even than the public thinks. This game, Joey, it's a lot.
Scatterboo just runs headfirst through people. Then you have freaking Dart. Hey, let's go.
Have you forgotten how good Patrick Surtain has been?
Let's jump head freaking first into 19 defenders, even though there are 11 there. Let's jump head first into all of them.
Dart has not faced a corner like Patrick Surtain all season. Dart has not faced a corner as good as Surtain all season. And
I don't care about the corner. I care about putting a head in the freaking...
And Malik Neighbors is out of the lineup. So without Neighbors, I don't think the Giants can win. Yes.
Believe me, they are going to find a way to put their helmet in there and make some plays because they are both probably eating crayons right now for dinner.
That vision, them eating crayons, it's just, there's something funny about that. I don't know what, but yes, the Colts play the Chargers in LA. Chargers should win this game. They are getting Joe Alt back at left tackle. Charvarius Ward is out for the Colts. Colts are two people, Tracy and Daniel Keyser, took the Colts. Why does this say Rams 35, Raiders 13? What the hell? I took the Chargers to win. What the hell? Did I forget to change the score? The over under is 46.5. So we're gonna go Chargers. We're gonna go. I think with Joe Alt back in the lineup and with Charvarius Ward out for the game, I think it's going to be a lot harder for the Colts to stop this offense. We'll go Chargers 34, and we'll give the Colts 13. Yeah, this is going to be a game.
I don't even remember who I picked on this.
You took the Chargers.
Okay. I figured Daniel Jones is going to have to come back down to earth at some point.
And Daniel Jones has this is a game where he could come back down to earth. Jesse Minter, Jim Harbaugh's defense. This is a game where he could come back down to earth. And Packers Cardinals. I like the Packers in this game. Cardinals, they don't have Kyler Murray. Now, Jacoby Brissett did look decent against the Colts in relief of Kyler Murray last week. They only lost by like a few points.
I was going to say, if they had Kyler Murray, I would have picked the Cardinals. But with Murray out, I don't think so.
Yeah, Packers should win with Kyler Murray out. Williams, the only person bold enough to take the Cardinals without Kyler Murray. And then we've got the Commanders-Cowboys game. Commanders-Cowboys game. Well, Grand Theft Auto 6 was projected to be released in the fall of next year, but they pushed the release date back to February of 2027 after the Super Bowl in LA, after Super Bowl 61 in LA. So the Cardinals need to write a thank you letter to Rockstar. The Cardinals need to write a thank you letter to Rockstar Games for not releasing Grand Theft Auto 6 during football season.
It's like they have been shouting to the high hells for that game for 2 years, and now they're pushing it back? Oh, hell! That is just... No! That's just bad marketing.
Kyler Murray cannot get distracted by Grand Theft Auto during football season unless they release the game during the week of the Super Bowl and the Cardinals are in said Super Bowl. Which would be a disaster, but it'd be an entertaining disaster.
Yeah, it's just a bad... I'm thinking about the video game thought process. It's like it's just a bad look on Rockstar Games. I'm sorry. It's like that overshadows this game because...
You know what's a severely underrated game by Rockstar Games? Bully. Bully is a severely underrated game by Rockstar Games.
I kicked that bully right in the bully. You don't need much of a bully bunch.
Yep. The Cowboys play the Commanders. Terry McLaurin's still out. I've got the Cowboys winning this game. They are going to have their entire offensive line back from injuries. Not Cooper Beebe, but they should have Booker back. They're going to have Tyler Guyton back. I think Beebe actually is a limited practice. And CeeDee Lamb's also expected to be back this week. So not only is Dak's offensive line going to be back, CeeDee Lamb is going to be back. I've got the Cowboys in this one, 35-28. I think this is the highest scoring game of the week. And we're in the minority on this one. 4 people picked the Cowboys. Only 2 were Kerm, Daniel Keyser, myself, and Joey, and 5 other people on our staff took the Commanders. So what does that say? And the Washington Huskies just made a 4th down stop against Michigan. Washington steals,
Michigan has sucked this year, so
if Washington can actually beat Michigan, Ohio State can lose to Michigan and still go to the Big Ten championship. Right now, as long as Michigan runs the table and beats Ohio State, they would still get in the Big Ten championship against Indiana. So that is great news, though, for Washington.
Michigan has sucked all year.
They sucked against Oklahoma. They've only lost 2 games. They lost to Oklahoma and they lost to Oklahoma and they lost last week to USC. But they haven't.
Yeah, but they didn't play well in any of the games. So it's more or less.
The running game with Justice Haynes has been good, but the passing game with Underwood as a freshman quarterback has been terrible.
Hayes was a guy that I told you about last year
when he was at Alabama.
I mean, Hayes is an amazing player either way.
Yeah.
But what about the rest of the team around him? I mean, they have had so many people go into the NFL draft for the last few years. Is basically Hayes and everybody.
Some of the linemen on Michigan. There's some linemen on Michigan. In the interior, they've got a left guard that's got Pro Bowl upside, and they've got a center you told me about. So outside of the center, the left guard, and the running back, no, they don't have a lot going for them.
They got nothing else. Everything else has gone into the NFL. It's like that is not, a great thought process.
They've got Rod Moore at free safety. Rod Moore, the Michigan free safety that got injured last year and came back. They got him on the secondary, but.
Oh, he came back. I thought he was supposed to be gone half the season.
Yeah, I think he's back.
I thought his injury trajectory was midway through the season.
We'll see. We'll see what his trajectory is. But the next game is the Falcons and the 49ers. It's a Sunday night game in San Francisco. Kittle is going to be back. Mac Jones probably going to start, but Kittle is going to be back, and they also get, I think they get Jordan Watkins and Jawan Jennings back. So they get Watkins, the Ole Miss receiver they drafted back from injury, and they also get Jawan Jennings back. And Kendrick Bourne would still be the number 2 receiver with Pearsall and Ayuk injured, and they get Kittle back. So they get enough weapons back. Look, Atlanta doesn't have a great center. They got rid of Drew Dalman. They don't have a great center. And Atlanta, even though they're hot right now, I don't think they have enough to beat a team like San Francisco on the road. It's easier for them to win at home than it is on the road. But I do think this game is going to be close. It's going to be competitive. And without Fred Warner for the rest of the year, he suffered a season-ending injury against the Bucs. Without Fred Warner, I like the 49ers 27-21, but this is very close. 5 people took the 49ers, 4 took the Falcons. Oren, Joey, Tony, Mario, and Tracy took the Falcons. This is a lot closer.
Look, the Falcons have a great running game. They have a very good young quarterback, and they're getting some guys off IR.
AJ Terrell came back for the Monday night game. Look, if they had a better center, I probably would have picked them to win. But right now, I think the 49ers still barely have enough pieces to beat this team. Barely.
Yeah, and when you say barely, that does not instill me with confidence.
I mean, Fred Warner and Nick Bosa, their 2 best players, are out for the year. Their 2 best defensive players, Fred Warner and Nick Bosa, are out for the year. So,
I have said for a few years, the Falcons have a lot of untapped potential. I think they're finally starting to tap into that potential.
They still don't have a complete team on paper this year because they lost Drew Dalman, didn't replace him in the draft, and they get Caleb McGarry back in week 8. Or after week 8, they get Caleb McGarry back. But right now, Caleb McGarry's still injured. Elijah Wilkinson's not great at right tackle. There's a chance they lose this game.
Yeah, they don't have a lot.
If they could steal this game, they will enter the wild card picture. But
have enough.
If they could steal this game, they'll enter the wild card picture. Because right now,
they've got some talent. Yeah, they need some more pieces. Absolutely, I agree. But the talent is there.
I agree the talent's there, but I think they're a 2026, 2027 wild card team. I don't think they get in this year. I think they get in next year as a wild card. But it's a very tight race.
They win this week.
If they can win this week, they will make things a lot more interesting. Because right now, I've got the Packers as my 5 seed at 10-6-1. The Bears improved their win projection to 10-7. And right now, the Panthers at 9-8, the Commanders at 9-8, and the Rams at 9-8 are tied for the final wild card. If the Falcons can beat the 49ers, they would enter that 9-8 discussion. But right now, of those teams, Dave Tepper's Carolina Panthers, Bryce Young, they would get the wild card over the Rams and Commanders in this scenario on playoff predictors.
I think the Falcons have the offense. They might have some things on defense and some offensive line issues, but they got weapons on offense that I think this week, just this week, can push them forward.
Look, the Falcons get the Dolphins at home in week 8. So if they can win this game, they're 3-3 right now. If they can win this game, you're looking at them being 5-3 entering the game against New England. And then they play the Colts in Germany in week 10. They play the Panthers in week 11. They get the Saints in week 12 in New Orleans. I think New Orleans wins that game because the Saints and Falcons fans just hate each other. And the players on both teams hate each other too in that rivalry. It's just they play the Jets on the road late November, and then they get Seattle at home, Tampa Bay on the road, and Tampa on Thursday night. They get the Cardinals on the road in week 16, and they get the Rams and Saints at home to end the year.
MVP Baker Mayfield's going to whoop their ass.
I would go with Jonathan Taylor as the MVP. Jonathan Taylor would be my MVP so far. Taylor's had 4 games where he's won player of the game. That's the most of any player in the league this season. Baker Mayfield is tied with James Cook for second, but Baker has the most player of the game awards among the quarterbacks.
I don't care. It's like if Baker Mayfield wins MVP, it will make me look like a freaking genius because I said it when he was in high school on this podcast that he would be a star. That would just
he's a high end.
Make me look great.
I viewed him as a high end starter. I didn't view him as a Pro Bowl talent coming out of Oklahoma, but I viewed him as a high end starter. He's exceeded expectations to a point, but I don't think he'll ever be as good as Allen or Lamar Jackson.
He will make me look like a freaking genius, and that's all we care about.
Okay, all right, but yeah, we'll see what happens. I think Baker will play Allen in next year's Super Bowl, but this year the Buccaneers will they'll either get in as the 2 seed and they'll lose to Philly in the divisional round. I think they'll get in. They'll win a wild card game as the 2 seed, and if they can beat the Lions, I think they've got a shot at the 1 seed if they beat the Lions. I've got the Buccaneers beating the Lions. It's not because I think the Buccaneers are a better team. The Lions have a ton of the Buccaneers are probably going to be the 1 seed right now. If the Buccaneers lose, the Lions have to go 12-5, and the Buccaneers have to lose to a team like the Saints in New Orleans next week in a trap game for the Buccaneers not to get the 1 seed. That's like the only scenario. Right now, the Buccaneers are healthier. The Buccaneers are depleted at wide receiver. The Lions are depleted in the secondary. This is the toughest game for me to pick. Mike Evans, Egbuka, Godwin, and Jalen McMillan are all injured for the Buccaneers, but the Lions don't have Terry and Arnold. He's out this week. Dan Campbell said on Tuesday Terry and Arnold's going to be out. DJ Reed's on IR, their number 2 corner. Amik Robertson's an okay nickel, but has no business being on the outside. And Ennis Rakestraw suffered a season-ending injury in the preseason, so Detroit, they're not going to have 3 of their top 4 corners. Brian Branch got suspended for his incident against the Chiefs, and Kirby Joseph got injured against the Chiefs and didn't return to the game. So right now, you're looking at the entire 4 best players in Detroit's secondary all being out versus Tampa. And even if Baker doesn't have his receivers, one thing people are discounting is Baker still has K. Dot at tight end. So This could be a K. Otten game if all 4 of those receivers are out this week. This could be a K. Otten game, Joey. So, and there is some speculation Mike Evans will return. So, but this could be a K. Otten game. So the Lions injuries are the only reason I'm taking the Buccaneers. And Baker would be second behind Jonathan Taylor on my MVP list. James Cook would be third, and then I think I would have Drake May and Patrick Mahomes both at fourth and fifth. Because there's only been 3 quarterbacks that have been featured multiple times on Draft Utopia this year. The only QB that was featured 3 or more times was Baker. I wanted to make Wirfs the player of the game, but as great as Wirfs was, my friend Cody Vanderhouten said that Baker was the reason the Bucs beat the 49ers in Week 6. So we ultimately went with Baker. So Baker's been player of the game 3 times, the most among quarterbacks this year. Drake May is second with 2 times, and Patrick Mahomes is also second with 2 times. And we've had 2 backup quarterbacks win player of the game as well, Mac Jones and Joe Flacco. So, yeah, we've had 2 backup quarterbacks win player of the game once. Usually we don't see backup quarterbacks win that award, but this year's been a strange year in that respect. So I think the top UFAs, if they both come back next year, are going to be Mac Jones and Joe Flacco. Those are going to be the top UFAs next year because of what they've done in backup roles this year. I've got the Buccaneers winning this game 28-20. Orrin, Tony, Mario, Curb, and Wes are all taking the Lions. So, yeah, everyone else is taking the Buccaneers. So, the most accurate pick members on our staff are taking the Lions. And normally I take the Lions, but I think without anyone in their secondary, without Terry and Arnold, without DJ Reed, without Brian Branch due to suspension, without Kirby Joseph due to injuries, I don't think the Lions have an answer for Baker Mayfield, even with Baker's top 4 receivers injured. If Baker were playing a healthier defense, this might be a bad game for him. With Detroit's entire secondary injured, this is going to be a field day for Baker. So the Buccaneers are going to win. Yeah. And if these teams meet in a rematch of the NFC Championship, like I predicted back in the preseason, I think the Lions win the rematch, but the Buccaneers win this game. Texans-Seahawks is the final game. I really did think long and hard about taking the Texans in an upset. I went with the Seahawks, though. The Seahawks have just shown me more. They went into Jacksonville and they beat the Jaguars without Devin Witherspoon and without Tariq Woolen. Really impressive win. I've got the Seahawks winning 20-19. Their Seahawks are favored by 3, Joey, but I think the Seahawks win and the Texans cover the spread. Wes and Joey both took the Texans. Everyone else took Seattle. So, and I thought William was going to take the Texans in an upset. He didn't. He took the Seahawks. So, yeah. I mean, we'll see what happens in these games, but we're about ready to sign off. It's 2:25 p.m. We've covered everything as far as sports goes this week. So we are going to sign off. I don't know why TalkShoe was working when we were halfway through the games, and then it stopped disconnected for a few minutes. But I'll reconnect on TalkShoe, and then we'll sign off on both outlets. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens here because there's only 11 unbeatens in college football left, and Duke is beating Georgia Tech. Actually 10, since Miami lost to Louisville last night after Carson Beck threw 4 interceptions. There's only 10 undefeated teams. And if Duke beats Georgia Tech, that means there will be no more undefeated teams in the ACC. And that's going to really change the dynamic here. But yeah, I think that was a pass to Eli Stowers. Pavia to Stowers, and there was a flag on the play. But yeah, the LSU game's on ABC. Got some college football to watch. Next week will be the 13-year anniversary of Draft Utopia. We will have MLS playoff picks. We will have offensive tackle rankings, top 25 offensive tackles. May reduce that from it's either going to be 25 or 30 offensive tackles. It just depends on how many are draft eligible this year.
How many years?
For 2026, the offensive tackles are next.
No,
Draft Utopia was founded on October 25th, 2012. That means next Saturday will be 13-year anniversary of Draft Utopia. 13 years of the website existing.
I don't like the old thing going there. I don't like getting old. Revert back time. You contact Doc Brown, make this thing happen.
And yeah, I've made a lot of Why would I go back in time? We've made a lot of progress. Like I figured out how to create a draft simulator. I figured out how to create a draft simulator using AI. So why would we go back in time? AI is actually helping improve my coding abilities. Why would we go back in time?
I'm old. That's the basic thing is that I'm old. Like, we want me to be young, old.
Yeah, it's like I don't know how much longer I could keep doing this, where I hardly get any sleep, but I still function at a high level. But I'm 34. I'm going to be 35 next year. I still feel young. I'm guessing the age will hit me hard like an MFer once I turn 35, and then once I'm 40. If it doesn't hit me hard by the time I'm 35, it'll hit me hard by the time I'm 40. But yeah, really, Talk Shoe? Just start the recording. Let me record for a few seconds, and I promise we'll sign off. I know after a certain period, Talk Shoe likes to sign out, but like, let's get our closing thoughts in. Jeez. But yeah, it's like Washington, Michigan still tied. Duke, Georgia Tech is tied. Vanderbilt leads LSU. TCU's beating Baylor. That's the fourth game on multi-view, even though I think there are better games. Oh, crap. Connecticut's beating Boston College 31-20 on ACC Network. Houston leads Arizona 28-14. Army and Tulane are tied after 3 quarters. Oklahoma leads Lenore Sellers 14-7 on SEC Network. West Virginia leads Central Florida leads West Virginia on TNT. So that's a college football game on TNT. I don't think any other college football games have aired on TNT this year, but I know they get the 2 playoff games. Oh, and 2 months from today is the 2026 MLS Super Draft. That is officially 2 months from today. So we'll have next week's episode of Draft Utopia, and then we won't be on Talk Shoe until the draft specials air. We will not be on Talk Shoe until the draft specials air after next week's episode. Because we're only doing 30 episodes on Talk Shoe this year to get to a clean 1,000 for season 15. Because this is season 15 of Draft Utopia's podcast. And we've had the website for exactly 13 years as of next Saturday. And so, yeah, we're probably only going to do 30 episodes on Talk Shoe this year. You'll have to go to Restream if you want to watch all the draft rankings for the guards, the centers, the edge rushers, the corners. Well, we might have the corners. We might have the cornerback rankings the week we break down the MLS draft. So we might have that. Okay? So you might be in luck for that one. But yeah. That's Joseph Potter. I'm Chris Ransom. We're officially signing off. Enjoy your college football Saturdays. And William, wherever you are, get better, buddy. But yeah. We're going to sign off. And yeah, 3 hours of 3 hours of football talk is over with. And I did a 10 a.m. show today where I watched Landon Nyes, the UMass defenseman, so for the NHL draft. So I did that with Ron at 10, and then we did the tight end rankings. But yeah, it was a fun day. We got everything covered in